Welcome back to another episode of Bulletproof Mindset, your go-to podcast for health, fitness and entertainment. I'm your host, Coach Crossar, and today I welcome Adam Lusby onto the show. This was a fantastic 2 hour, I think it was just over 2 hour conversation, diving into his whole story. Now, for you who do not know who Adam is the coach, the strength and conditioning coach to many of the top performing UFC fighters, boxers and high performing or high elite level athletes. He is the owner and founder of Enhanced Sports Performance, has his own facility up in Dundee and has an incredible story. You're going to hear a lot on how he managed to get started or how he got started in fitness, but more importantly, how he started to land some of the big names in the fighting space. He's also well known for his strength and conditioning critiques across the board. From, I think he got a lot of hate from the Usain Bolt's accusations all the way through to Cristiano Ronaldo and all that sort of stuff. Now, if there's a page worth following when it comes to strength and conditioning, Adam is the page to follow. It's often, it probably gets butchered more so than it does get done right, if that makes sense. And of course, you're going to hear all about this in today's episode, but highly recommend you follow his page. I'm going to leave a link below the show notes of this video. He's on Instagram, TikTok, and he also does a podcast from time to time as well, so I'll leave a link to that below. Of course, if you want to work with him, if you like the information that he's communicating throughout the episode, I'll leave a link on all the different ways that you can work with him below as well. And the last thing, all I would say is, if you're new around here, I release an episode every Monday and Thursday at 6 a.m. I've done this for the last 2 years. I'll do it for the next 2. And one of the best ways you can support the show is by leaving a 5-star rating on Spotify, subscribing to YouTube, or at the very least, leave a comment below this video. How did you find today's video? And do you have any questions for Adam? Do we need to get him back on the show and maybe dive deeper into some of the subjects or some of the topics of strength and conditioning? So with that being said, enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy today's episode. So it's funny you actually mentioned the gym. So I was listening to a bunch of podcasts, and I listened to your podcast with Lewis McFarlane. Obviously, I had him on, which is obviously, we're talking 2020. Yeah. So for the sounds of it, about then, that's when you just started, or are you a couple of years into it?
I can't remember. So
I was like, I think you mentioned, we've been in lockdown for 80 days, so I can't wait to go out. And I was like, if only like, what do you call it? Like foresight or something was a thing back then. Just like, I can't wait to get the fighters back.
I know.
But he asked you a question about owning your own place, and you were like, nah, I never really have wasn't it something you fancied doing?
No, I didn't want to do it. And then it just kind of arose. It just happened where I needed to move out of the place I was PTing out of for numerous different reasons. And then this place kind of was there. And at first when I looked at it, I was like, it's too big. Because I wanted just a PT studio just to do one-to-ones for myself. Yeah. But that wasn't available at the time, so then I was like, how am I going to do this? And then I was just like, I'm just going to take a risk, and just went for it.
Aye.
And it's worked out.
Aye. Is it just simple as that?
Simple as that, mate.
What was the reason you were coming to an end with the place you were working at?
It was just getting really busy.
Really
busy. Aye. And I did eventually end up thinking, what would be kind of good to have my own place. Mm-hmm. Just with the clientele I've got, I kind of wanted like a sports performance centre. Yeah. So that was kind of the reason why it kind of faded out. But I've still got a good relationship with the owner of that gym. He was my first ever client. Yeah.
So from people who haven't listened to your story, like, he basically said to you, like, you can train for free ultimately, and you don't get a better deal than that deal.
That was superb. That was a brilliant deal.
That's awesome.
As soon as he said that, I was like, okay, this is what.
Yeah. So I don't want you to be kind of all repeating the same story, but we'll kind of condense it. But where I do want to go, sounded like you were interested in maybe not MMA but grappling and jiu-jitsu. I actually seen a few videos on YouTube of your competition and that sort of stuff. That then evolved to you wanting to become a personal trainer but more so because you're a prison guard. And then I didn't realise there would be posts for PTs being a prison guard. And it's mad how that opportunities then got you to kind of where you are for here. That's mental.
Right, so MMA was always my like number one sport. I always loved, like, I never had a fight, but I always trained MMA and trained jiu-jitsu and always watched MMA. And then, being in the jail, I wanted to be a PT in the jail because it was the easiest job, to be honest.
Aye.
Because all the prisoners love being in the gym. So they would never cause any hassle usually in the gym because they don't want getting their gym taken away from them.
No, of course. It's like golden time back in the day.
Yeah, exactly, golden time. So it was basically like that. So I was like, I need to get in there as best I could. And that kind of started me off, because I remember being in the jail and just being like, this place is so stressful.
How did you land that job? Like, see, going to high school, obviously, I'd imagine you're into MMA, that's the sport that you absolutely love. Are you watching all the fights and all that?
Yeah, so I was into MMA. I didn't do it at school. It was more when I left and went to university, I started doing it. And then...
Was that as big of a thing?
No, definitely not.
Like, because you've got tons of places now you can go train.
It wasn't a thing at all back when I kind of started doing it. And I remember like the UFC was obviously massive now, but it was nowhere near as big. It was only maybe an event a month or an event every 2 months. So it was very underground. And I kind of liked that a little bit, because I don't know.
It's like old school Fight Club.
Yeah, it was kind of cool being in. Oh, you into the UFC? It was kind of cool. And then I don't know how. I thought I was wanting to be a police officer. That's how I got into police. Okay. So I applied for like voluntary police work. Did it? Didn't like it. And then a job opportunity came up at the prison. I was like, you know what?
What do you not like about the police work then? What was it? Was it different to what you expected?
There's a lot of standing about, doing absolutely nothing. Just stand it, and then the job's a bit fucked in the sense that like there's so much paperwork, it takes up a lot of your time.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't want to be doing this. And then I just thought, nah, it's not for me. A lot of the people were really, really nice. Some of the people weren't. I just like, I don't fancy this as much anymore.
What age are you at this point?
Must have been like 24 or something like that.
Cool. Have you done anything before this then?
I was
jobs wise. All right, okay.
I was a bouncer for a few years.
Interesting.
Which was exciting.
Aye.
And then I just knew I didn't want just an office job. I wanted something with a bit of excitement, like something happening. So that's why I kind of wanted those kind of jobs, like an emergency service job or something.
Put the MMA skills to work.
Exactly.
Be a fighter, but not be a fighter type of thing.
Legally be okay to like, so that's what I wanted to do. And then the prison officer job came up, and I went for that. And I think it helped being a bouncer, because obviously conflict resolution and all these kind of things. So that definitely put me in good stead. But I knew it was a job I could do for like 20 years, just because mentally it's really tough on people. Yeah,
and it's usually, you get to see that, because you get to see people with 20 years, 30 years of service, and it's a bit of a shock, isn't it? It's like, I don't want my life to look like that. How old are you?
I am 34.
Right, cool. So you're a few years older than me, and I think the generation above us, theirs was getting a job, good job, job for life type thing. I saw this just in the corporate space, and it definitely got me thinking. I was like, is that what I want to do? And it's like, man, they're just moaning week in, week out, like just become grumpy old men.
Aye, 100%. That's exactly what happens.
So in the kind of before this, do you remember in high school like dream jobs or anything like that you wanted to do?
I think my dream job was just a police officer.
Right.
I think that was what I wanted to do. I didn't even have a concept of strength and conditioning coach at the time. I didn't really know that was a thing for fighters especially. And then I didn't really. I think it was just the police I wanted to do. So I did criminology at university, and then when I had my taste of police work and realised I didn't like it, I didn't really know what I was going to do. I ended up working in Michelin for a little bit, like the tyre factory. I ended up being a bouncer for a few years. Then it was the prison service, and I thought that was going to be my job. But then quickly realised this is not going to be my job.
It's crazy how like life just teaches you lessons.
Oh, absolutely. But I also think like you say, the generation before us, maybe it was like a job for life. You go to university, get a job, and that's my whole family.
I was going to say that's ultimately your role models in a sense. Like, what do you do? You look at, is your mum and dad together?
Mum and dad together. Both teachers. Sister's a teacher. Brother's a teacher.
Right.
So like that was kind of like you just become a teacher.
Right.
Thing. So when I kind of did something else, definitely the black sheep of the family. Like,
do you get any pressure at all? Was there any? Are you sure, or like try to talk you into?
No,
it?
my mum and dad were really supportive, so that's good. But I was just never very good at school, so there was always a bit of conflict there because like I was quite badly behaved at school. We get in trouble at school, so there was always a bit of conflict there. And then I think mum and dad realised like he's not going down the same route that we would go down.
Yeah. How did you compare to your sister in that?
Oh, they were much better at school.
Where do you rank in terms of like? Are you the oldest brother?
I'm the youngest.
Right, so right, okay,
I'm
so
the
you
youngest.
got
and they're
the
a fair bit older.
Right,
so like my brother's 11 years old, my sister's 7 years older.
Okay.
So they'd already kind of almost went through school and was in university when I was going into high school. And they were really good at school. I just hated it. Like I won't do anything that I'm not passionate about doing. And that's why I got the job as a strength and conditioning coach, because I realised in my kind of learning, I realised, this is something I actually really
you can learn about the passion. Yeah.
And I was like, this doesn't feel like, it always felt like learning before, like, oh God, I've got to read this book and for that, it wasn't like that. I'd come home and look forward to reading books.
I never thought I would read a book like that Rebuilding Milo book, the Scott University book. Like the anatomy books, I'm like, I put this in front of me in high school and I would have been like, oh, boring. It's crazy how like just as you get like wiser and older with some things, especially when there's passion behind it, I think that's the big thing.
That is massive.
So you're going through life, and I just want to kind of touch on like the family situation a sec, because you mentioned about your dad having quite a hard time and now how he's able to kind of, he's transformed his life around. Can you talk about that?
So he's like the main reason why I'm kind of, I think mindset's so important, and like I've developed my own mindset and my own kind of mental health, and it was all stemmed from him because, like I say, when I was at school, he was very, very, very strict. He was the head teacher, a head teacher.
Oh, was he? Right, okay.
Yeah, so he was like proper.
I can only imagine what this household would have looked like growing up, so especially if you're a rebel.
Yeah, I'm a rebel. So I used to get letters home from school saying I behaved badly, so I would run home from school and like rip them up before my mum and dad would get them and stuff like that, right? So it was a horrendous time. I felt like I was walking on eggshells a lot of time because I knew I'd probably done something wrong, and I knew he was going to find out I was going to get in trouble.
Just had that guilt.
Yeah, I was like, oh no. But then what happened was he got super stressed out at work, had to take early retirement, and I think he realised like I'm on a quick road to an early grave. So he was like, I need to sort myself out. So he's had a complete 180 in his personality. He's a bit more of a hippie, much more relaxed. He became a licensed hypnotherapist, and he took a lot of my fighters for hypnotherapy sessions and things like that. And seeing his kind of change in his personality was what made me realise, oh, this mindset stuff's like legit. Like
it's powerful.
I think it's really powerful. And I think I thought it's all very hippie and all very wishy-washy and all that kind of stuff. But when I saw that, I was like, oh, right, okay. And plus at that time, I was super, super aggressive as well. And like would always get in arguments with people. And I had this thing, I'd always have to win the argument. So I'd be like, super vicious and super aggressive in arguments. And it wasn't very good. And I just knew eventually I thought I was going to get in trouble, probably with the law. Although I wanted to be a policeman, I thought, I'm going to do something here where it's like...
It's going to ruin it.
There's no going back, kind of, not like fucking murder or something. But you know what I mean? Like getting a fight on a night out or do something stupid. So at that point, I started kind of doing things and taking steps to kind of help my own mental health. And I don't know if it was very conscious or if it was just kind of, it just happened, but it was definitely one of the best things I've ever done.
Where do you think that sort of fiery attitude came from? I think it was just seeing what everyone doing and trying to do the opposite.
I don't know. So my dad's always had. I'm more like my dad, whereas I think my brother and my sister are more like my mum. My mum's quite laid back, but my dad's always had like that kind of aggressiveness to him as well. I think it was just a bit of that, and I almost like proving myself in some ways. And yeah, I just had this thing about never wanting to lose an argument and. Obviously, I never want to lose a fight and things like that. So
macho.
Just a macho, just typical alpha male macho nonsense. And I think it just stems from that kind of thing. Yeah, I think so.
High level of testosterone, probably. That's where it'll come down to it.
That's what it was, yeah.
Just the teenage years phasing out and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
So when he goes through all this, you mentioned that he had quite a life-changing circumstance. Was that before this, or like was it cancer and... heart attack,
numerous things. So he had a heart attack early on in my life, but that never. He says that never changed his attitude. He just kind of went back to what he was doing, which was working constantly, and being constantly stressed out. Then he got like stress and depression, and that was the big thing that made him need to change his attitude and need to change his. So that was the massive thing, and it was. He got cancer, but it was how he dealt with cancer was super, super impressive.
Right. To
me, it wasn't. It was just very, very impressive. And I remember getting a message off of, he got a tattoo, like a big, massive back piece done.
Right.
Just massive, I think it was like Valhalla and things like that, right? And I don't think he ever had any tattoos, and he's got a massive big back piece done. And I remember the tattooist saying, like, he just sat there and just didn't say a word, didn't moan, didn't say anything. I talked to him about it, and he was just like, oh, it's just a mindset thing. And that was when I was like, oh, this is so cool.
What age are you at this point?
I can't even remember how old I was. Maybe I was like...
Your teenage years or
late teenage year? Well, I think when he had to retire, I was probably about 15, 16 at that point. Because I remember thinking, I can't run home and get the letters to rip them up because he's going to be at home.
Right, okay.
So I think it was like 15, 16 at that point. When he maybe like turned his life around was probably like towards the end of that, maybe like 17 years old, 18 years old. I think like, around those kind of times.
So it's like your impressionable years and that sort of stuff where you start to see actual how you're becoming a man and everything like
100%.
that, which is mad. So it sounds like he's been quite a good mentor, or even just as part of your entourage of what you do in terms of your coaching now. So does he just do that like for fulfillment, pure joy of what he does? Yeah,
he doesn't do the hypnotherapy, but he's getting on a bit. He's getting old. He's like 74 now, so he's getting on. But he just he always follows my fighters, and he'll like if they wanted any help to go to him, they can. You know what I mean? He doesn't like charge him, he just does it for a bit of fun.
That's class. Was he into MMA at all or anything like that? Or?
A little bit. Obviously, more so now that I've got fighters that actually fight in the UFC and stuff. So he loves following them, and even like local shows and the local fighters and things like that. But he said, but we're all kind of, me, my brother, and my dad, we're all into kind of combat sports when we were younger.
So you fast forward a wee bit, then you land this job in the prison. Was that like, how long did you do that for?
I was a prison officer, I think, for 3.5 to 4 years, something like that. And like going into it, like because I'd been a bouncer, you kind of knew to expect like the violent side of it. Like violence it wasn't really shocking. You knew there was going to be violence, but what was shocking was maybe seeing like the level of self-harm. That was pretty shocking. Because I'd never been really around that, and like people slitting their wrists in front of you, and like cutting their own faces and things like that. And it's quite like harrowing to see that. Another thing that was maybe quite shocking, I remember at visits, you would see this guy come in, and he was an addict, like a full blown like heroin addict, and had been for years. And he sits down, and I remember the two people that come up to see him, his mum and dad. His mum and dad reminded me of my mum and dad. Yeah. They were just normal people. Teachers, maybe doctors or whatever they were, but they were very, very normal and very polite and very nice, and they were going to see their son who was a full-blown heroin addict. And I remember thinking, wow, like that must be horrendous for them, because they're obviously not in that world at all.
Were you pretty straight-laced with like alcohol and drugs like growing up? Or did you get roped into much of that? Or was it cause
a little bit. I've never been really into drugs. Well, I was more into my kind of downers and my uppers, so like I would experiment with weed and maybe mushrooms and stuff, but I was never into coke, and I'm kind of happy for that. Yeah. I don't really know why. I think it kind of scared me almost, because I always remember thinking like, you can get hooked on this, and I'm really like a coke addict, like cokehead. But I did like my drink. I do like my drink, and I still like my drink today. Right. But I would, every night, or every weekend, me and the lads would be going out in the park and drinking, like you usually would do. I think I'm very fortunate. I don't really have like an addictive personality, and I think that definitely is a thing where people just do it and they can't stop doing it. Yeah,
you get so caught up with the dopamine hit. You probably see it in fighters, actually.
Yeah, 100%. Because
I know you've talked a lot about actually trying to pull your fighters back, and it's like no pain, no gain. It's like, no, there is gain. Like you want to do the least amount possible to elicit, which is, it's a weird concept to grasp. We'll come on to that. So see in the time that you were in the prison, did any of that like mess with you mentally?
I think because I'd done it for only 4 years, I think no. But I remember actually there was a time when it was a super stressful period at work. It was a week where everything went wrong. Like I said, a guy swallowed a razor blade in front of me, then a guy tried to headbutt me, and there was a big massive fight kicked off, and then something else happened. I think a guy killed himself that I actually knew from school, and he killed himself. All these things happened in the jail in the space of like a week. And I remember driving home, I was driving past McDonald's. I was like, fuck, I'm going to McDonald's. So I went and got McDonald's. I was like, I'm going to get a KFC. Put the McDonald's bag on the floor, went and got a KFC, went home, then poured out some of the Coke and put loads of vodka in it, and just sat there and got absolutely annihilated on myself eating it. And I was like, this is not right.
Right.
This is not right.
This is getting a maybe breaking point for like me to change something.
Yeah, I was like, this. I've obviously hit my maximum stress level I can handle before this starts getting ridiculous. So I think I was just very conscious after that. I was like, this is not something I could do for 20, 40 years, because like I say, I was looking at the people around me and like realising like they've all got not something wrong with them. I feel harsh saying something wrong with them, but there was always quite a lot of negatives in their lives. It's not their fault. I just think it's the environment they're in.
I was going to say environment's everything, and you're choosing a career where you're going into this negative environment, and there has to be a level of resilience that you have from a mindset perspective. I know of people who've worked in the prison and they tell me some crazy stories, and they're almost broken because of it. And it's like, I get it's maybe an okay salary and things like that, but is it really worth that trade-off when it comes to your health? And I think shift working is another example of this, where yes, there's a wee bit bonus in terms of the money that you get, but I dipped my toe into that for a period of time, and I was like, nah, I need to change something. Like, and I'm going to look back in this day, and I know I'm going to be thankful that I made whatever step it was going to be. So I imagine you're doing this. You get into altercations quite a lot then, in terms of like fights and all that. I think people don't realise that like you do need to come like start scrapping with people. Just probably more so when you were a bouncer or less.
It's more controlled as a prison officer,
right?
Because you've got a team and you can't really be punching people in the face as a prison officer. You get sacked. You know what I mean? So there's more a control to it, but it's almost a little bit more scary because of that, because you've got certain rules. You can't punch them in the face. You can't do these things, and you know these guys are proper guys, like they're proper violent. Some of them have murdered people, and some of them are
they don't have that switch of they generally don't care.
No, like if we get in a fight, I'm thinking I'm not going to stab this guy. They don't really think like that. So because of that, there's more restriction on you, and there's less restrictions almost on them because they could be in there forever. That's more scary, although you've got lots of people around you who support you. Whereas as a bouncer, it was more fun in a way. I don't want to say fun because obviously fighting's not a good idea, but it was more kind of relaxed, and it was more fun.
Oh, people are drunk, so
people are drunk, exactly.
Pushing over a wee bit easier.
People don't realise how terrible they are at fighting when they're drunk. It's horrendous.
And it's weird because it spikes the ego.
I know, they think they're so confident as well.
They've done a few MMA classes and they think they can go for
exactly, it. But it was definitely scarier in the jail having these altercations rather than as a bouncer.
Did it make you appreciate anything when it came to your life?
How quickly it can change in terms of so there's people in the jail who are really nice guys, like they would be your mates, but they may be on a night out going to fight, punch someone, and
that's literally it.
That's it, like one punch. And actually my friend at school punched someone, killed them. He was, I think, fortunate to get away with self-defense, but if he never, that's his life over, you know what I mean? And there was a lot of people in jail like that, so I think it makes you very wary, and I was, certainly when I left the working in the jail, of things can go wrong very, very quickly and on the outside.
Yeah.
You've got to be careful.
And even you don't realise that actions have consequences, but from the sake of taking someone's life without meaning it, you don't think about that when it comes to fighting. It's the last thing you think about. Let me let him out. So you're getting caught up in all of this, and then I take it you're looking at the PT room, you're looking at this nice facility, which I hear as well, decent kitted out.
Decent, yeah.
And you're thinking, you know what, we're pretty decent to go in there.
I realised at that point, I was like, look, I either need to go to the Castle Huntly, which is an open jail, so there's a saying, there's no hassle in the castle, because it's much more relaxed. It's an open jail. Obviously there is issues, right? But it's not as full on as other jails, right? So I was thinking, right, I either need to get there or work in the gym, because again, there's not as much incidents. There are still things that happen.
No, of course.
But there's not a man. So that's when I was like, right, but everyone else is thinking like that as well. There's a lot of guys in the jail, prison officers, who like going to the gym. So all of them are thinking,
of course,
I want that
I could
job.
get paid for this.
Yes, and there's only 4, I think, maybe PTs in the gym. So
what does that job look like? Is it just a matter of maintaining the gym, or you're taking classes?
No, it's literally
you're there.
You're bringing them from the halls to the gym, and you're sitting on your arse while they work out. And you'll probably get to work out with them. That's what I would be doing. Again, there's football getting played.
Right.
There's a small indoor pitch, so you could maybe play fives there. You'll probably get people playing fives with them, and it's a pretty cushy job.
I was going to say, it's mad that that's a thing though, isn't it? It's mental. But obviously, I guess, what's the alternative? Because the more cooped up someone gets, I guess, the harder it is to maybe police or manage.
I remember thinking when I went in, because they get fucking everything. And people will get annoyed when they think about it. They do get PlayStations. They're PS2s. They're not fucking PS5s, but they get PS2s. They've got the pool table. They get to go to the gym maybe twice a day or whatever it is. They get to play football. So people think they get too much, and they get TVs and all that. But reality is, if that person left the jail, would you rather they were just cooped up 23 hours a day, and they've now become your neighbour, or would you rather that they actually got to socialise and they actually got to go to work, they get to go to work, or they get to go to education and they get educated? Would you rather that person living next to you? Obviously, you'd rather that person than the person that's been caged like an animal. Even though that is more punishment for them, you wouldn't want them.
I never really thought about the psychological component. A wee bit of a dark turn, but what's your kind of beliefs or thoughts around like the whole death penalty and all that sort of stuff with the maddies that you've seen?
That's a tricky one. I think there's some people who are just inherently like almost broken, and there's no amount of rehabilitation that can fix them. I think the death penalty, I think that I don't think we should have it. As I said, I don't think it should be introduced. I think introducing something like that is different from if we've already, like in America, they've already got it.
Years and years.
I think to introduce something like that would be quite barbaric because there are mistakes. People do get.
If you can't 100% guarantee it, then
you can't. So, although people have done heinous things and should never ever be released, in my opinion, and yeah, they probably deserve that. We shouldn't be introducing that.
It's weird to ask you that question. You know, in my English, I was about third year high school, and we were learning about the art of debating, and that was the topic I had there was a group of people for the death penalty and against. Just when I asked you that, I was like, oh, no, approached this conversation about 17 years. Cool. So you get your kind of qualification for the PT side of things. Your brother's a boxing coach, and was it? So he said he's a teacher now. Yeah. Did he just do that on the side because he enjoyed combat sports?
He was always a teacher, and he did boxing on the
That's
side.
cool.
Still does.
So just like as a wee passion thing.
Yeah.
So you kind of go through this journey, and it's like, here, do you want to kind of help us with these guys with the getting them stronger, getting them lifting weights?
Yeah.
What's your at this point? What do you associate lifting weights with? Do you associate that with bodybuilders and building muscle, or is there a performance thing or aspect of it in your brain?
Probably a little bit just with bodybuilders, I think. I always knew being stronger is not going to help you in a fight. You know what I mean? Like, there's always a saying, no one's ever lost a fight from being too strong, right? So I always kind of had that in the back of my head, but I didn't have a fucking clue about plyometrics, ballistics, speed work, or the force velocity curve and all these kind of things. I didn't have a fucking clue about any of that. But I think when you just asked me to do it, I just think, oh, that'd be cool. Just kind of. I was almost like, oh, it'd be cool to like show off my knowledge to some fighters. Like, cool. So, and like I said, I always kind of went to the gym because I'd been a bouncer and stuff like that, and because I'd worked in the jail. Yeah, I'd always wanted to like be at least a little bit strong. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think I just kind of thought that'd be kind of cool to try out.
What's the timing then since you start doing this, and then when you go, do you end up applying for this PT role in there?
No, it never
even came out.
Never even came about.
You just sitting waiting.
Yeah, I was just waiting, and I remember like registering for like emails. There was like SPS of like job alerts.
The internal job news or something like that. Yeah.
I remember registering for that and just checking it, refreshing, checking it every day,
waiting for this dream job.
Yeah, I was like, I'll take it in Edinburgh, I'll take it in Peterhead. I wouldn't care where it was, but I'll just take it anywhere. But it just never arrived.
Yeah.
So I think I'd been in the jail maybe 3 years at that point. And when that opportunity arose, I kind of jumped at it. And it kind of took me a year to kind of fully commit to it, because obviously you're going from a very, very, very secure job. There's always going to be prison officers. You know you're getting paid like to go into being self-employed, and that is a scary jump to make. And my partner at the time, she had just made the same jump as well. So like it's like fuck.
So you're both going in with 2 feet, and you the first of your family to be self-employed.
Yeah, and that
must be quite scary as well.
Yeah, that's been a struggle, and I think that's. I think when you're surrounded by, if your family are entrepreneurs or business owners and stuff, it does make your path a little bit easier into that.
Get a framework if someone's already tried trial and error.
Yeah. Like I didn't really ever think about being my own business owner. I didn't like, oh, that's for like rich people, or that's for like, you know what I mean, like entrepreneurs and things like that. I don't class myself as an entrepreneur. But yeah, I think like having all my family as people who, like say, went to university, got a job, and that was their job for life. You just think that's the way it goes, and you don't think about kind of anything.
It doesn't even cross your mind.
No, not at all.
So what age are you when you make this leap? You're 28, 27?
Yeah, something like that.
So this was about the same. I was about 28, I think, when I quit my corporate job.
Yeah.
But did it ever cross your mind? Because it definitely did for me, that might be too old for this.
No, I never thought like that. I think maybe if I'd actually thought about my age, I thought, yeah, I am. But no. I think the desperation to get out of that job,
that was just so powerful.
Yeah, it was more than any of the other worries, like of my mortgage, and it was more than that. So I was like, nah, I can't do this forever. And I think because my dad had went through what he'd went through with his depression, his stress and all that, I am always very cautious about my own mental health and thinking, this probably will affect me to the point where it's very, very detrimental, and I'll get super stressed out here. So I remember thinking, yeah, that's more powerful for me than the other things like my age or my mortgage or whatever it may be.
That's good. It's probably, I can understand where your confidence came from with handling difficult situations and just building that resilience through, I guess, the tough times that you're going through with that. But that makes sense from a mental health perspective as well. Did you ever think mental health was a real thing or not so real thing growing up? Or because I think for our generation for sure, it wasn't really talked about as much. And I first heard about it in a leadership management course I went, and I'm like, what is this? And then you have to, how you deal with people and certain things. And I thought, really? You just think everyone thinks the same, but we're all so different, so unique.
Yeah, I did think, I didn't think it never even crossed my mind, really. Like I said, it was just my dad and his old mindset switch and his personality switch that made me realise and really think about it and be cautious about it. Don't get me wrong, I never got to a point in the jail where I thought, in the next few weeks or in the next month, I'm going to end up with stress and depression, anything like that. I just knew chronically over time, it probably would wear you down.
It's going to compound in a bad way.
Yeah, I just thought this is more than likely to happen. So yeah, I never really thought about it when I was young. It was only when I got a bit older and I realised, this is a legit thing.
So, pretty cool leap to make from where you're at now, especially it seems like every year's getting better since coming into it. Was that a good estimate? Yeah,
fair to say. That's fair to say.
So there's also kind of lots to talk about within that. You've trained multiple different athletes, from the big names to the small names and everyone in between. So your strategy of getting into the world of strength and conditioning, I think it's a really cool story. Where you're just who is the sort of big names in Dundee and surrounding areas, and you just went, I'm just going to reach out to them, see if I can train them for free. Where did that confidence come from? Did that, when you were training the boxers from your brother's gym, did you realise how little to nothing it was there for them?
It was that. It was also because I did the sport. That's a massive thing for me. So the two people I trained, a guy called Scott Malone, MMA fighter, and Paul Keane, boxer. Scott and me had been training for years doing MMA together and jiu-jitsu together and stuff like that. So there's already an in there.
A relationship.
You know what I mean? And like I say, the more I researched and learnt about strength and conditioning, the more I realised it's not happening at all. In Dundee, I don't even know if there was a strength and conditioning coach in Dundee. I was just very fortunate.
I think it's quite piss poor still.
Yeah,
it's making waves, which is great to see, but we'll obviously talk about the maybe controversy and people try to show off their strength and conditioning sessions. You're like, that's no strength and conditioning. Shit. So you're doing all this research, I guess. Where do you learn the word strength and conditioning? You're doing compound lifts in the gym, and then you start to understand plyometrics, and you just going down a rabbit hole then?
Yeah, I just went down a rabbit hole, and I think what I did was I was followed some of the top athletes, and it doesn't always work like this, but just thinking who's coaching them? And as we know now, just because you're a top athlete doesn't mean you've got good strength. But there were started to be names that would arise and arise again, Phil DeRue was a big name for me. This guy Lauren Landau, and all these names would arise, and then down south in Sheffield there was a guy called Danny Wilson, and they would crop up over and over again. So I was like, right, okay, they're obviously the industry leaders, as you would, or if you will. So I just followed them, and I just started learning from them, and I started getting their books and going to their courses, and it just became a rabbit hole, and it kind of just absolutely snowballed.
And the good thing is you had a clientele where you could apply this to.
Absolutely.
How do you start getting paid? How does that work? How's that journey like?
Still not getting paid. No, so like you mentioned, the first two people I trained for nothing because I knew that they would bring in the people, and then I just started being like, right, what does a personal trainer charge? So it's per session. It's what, 40 quid or 30 quid, whatever it was. I just started doing that, and then I knew more people come. Then I knew I need to get away from that model. I need to maybe do it online and start doing programs, and then I started doing that. And it's just looking at people who already do it and just copying them.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that.
The road's already paved.
Yeah, and then realistically, I make my money off my top 1% clients. My Paul Craigs, my Chris Duncans, these guys in the UFC. I make money from them, and they pay me per camp. Most of my other guys, I'm using them as kind of my advertisement boards for my programs. It's kind of how it works with my business.
Good. And that's obviously through trial and error and all these different things over the years and that sort of stuff. Is there ever a part of you that's like, I want to be an athlete within this sport, or do you just fall in love with the coaching?
There was at one point, like I was doing MMA, I was doing jiu-jitsu, and I was like, oh, I could do this. But then stupidly, I started doing this when I was maybe 21, maybe 19, 21. And I remember thinking, I've started too late. I'll never make it as a pro because I've started too late. Because you're looking at people in America who've wrestled since they're 5 years old. I know. Right? So I remember thinking, I can never make it as a pro. And mindset-wise, I just didn't have it. I think my life's been pretty cushy. So I think there needs to be a little bit of, I don't know, you need a little bit of hardship in your life.
A bit of darkness.
Yeah, a bit of darkness. I don't think I'm dark enough. I always say my mum and dad should have given me a shitter upbringing and being in the UFC right now.
So does that hold true with all the kind of athletes that you've kind of had?
I don't think I've met one who's not. No, that's not true. There's a few that have had good upbringings and they've got great families, and don't get me wrong, but there's always something.
Yeah,
there's always something.
A bit of darkness somewhere.
And then for the majority of them, it's been a poor upbringing that's caused it, I would think.
Just that pain. It's almost like, I guess, the pain that you're in with your the prison job.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm going to make this jump. I'm going to make it happen. Exactly, I guess that's where your story is. But equally, that's where they've got. Why do you think people turn to fighting in MMA?
I think it's so. As a job or as a sport, why do people watch it or why do people do it?
I guess like from an athlete side of things, I wonder why people do it.
So for me, I always did it because I always was scared of getting my head kicked in. So I always thought, well, at least if I know a bit, I'll be able to handle myself. I'll be able to protect my family, my partner, whatever. So that for me was a big thing. And that's why I still keep my hand in it a little bit to this day. There's also an animalistic and an element to it of being alpha and knowing that you can batter everybody. Males are always into that. And that's why there's more male MMA fighters than there's female fighters, because testosterone is more aggressive. So that's the reason why people get into it. And obviously the glory of it. If you look at people like Conor McGregor, although he's went off the rails, but Conor McGregor, John Jones, all your Canelo Alvarez's, it's the glory of it. They're millionaires, they're famous, get all the girls.
So this is the vision that they're starting to get built with these guys.
No one starts MMA and thinks, I'm going to be a good regional fighter.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're all thinking, I'm going to be champ.
The top, yeah.
100%.
And so let's talk about like some of the athletes that you've trained through that journey. When you're in their fight camp or you're prepping them for their strength and condition, there's actually a lot on this topic I want to dive into. I'm a big advocate of good programming. I think it's almost like slapped on in the PT term. So yeah, you get your program. And it's like, well, like, what's the program like? There has to be. I like what you said. It's not written in pen. It's not written in pen. It's written in pencil. Yeah. Like that's your ability as a coach to be adapting to that. Obviously, over the years, you get better at that skill. What's it like when you're training an athlete? You're obviously one of their number one fans going in through that, and then they get that loss. How hard is that? What was like the first instances of that happening for you?
Oh, it's horrendous.
Yeah.
It's horrendous.
Do you feel guilt?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but that's also what makes the job fucking amazing, because when they win, it is such a high. It's unbelievable. I
can imagine.
It's brilliant. But the lows are so low because he's just got knocked out on national television in front of his friends and family, and you're always thinking, is there something I could have done a little bit more? But as you get more experienced, you learn that I've had camps that have been the best camps ever with guys. Like, brilliant. He's hitting PBs, he looks faster, stronger, he's made weight easier, and then he goes and gets knocked out. You realise that like there's so many variables in fighting
tons,
that you're a very small part of the puzzle. And you do what you can, but ultimately it's a lot of it's not to do with you. So that makes it a little bit easier as you get more experience. But you'll never enjoy, like my guy Paul Craig was fighting on Saturday, got beat.
Yeah.
You'll never enjoy that. No, you know what I mean? What now happens is when my guys get beat, I'm just like, are they all right? Are they okay? As soon as I know they're okay, like that makes it miles easier. I'm like, okay, well, at least they're fine.
Was something, because you spoke a lot about the art of communicating and building relationships and that. It's a massively overlooked skill, and I imagine even more so in your world where there is a performance stat. Like for most gen pop, it's like, oh, you miss weight or you miss the scales or you cheating your diet, whatever you want to call it. There's not severe consequences against that. Whereas you, like you said, there's a bit of pride on the line. There's it's in front of thousands, if not millions of people, and some depending on the athlete that you're training. Where do you find your role playing in terms of the mindset stuff? Do you find that you're tapping into that more? Or?
Yeah. I always try and think about that and be very cautious about what I'm saying, especially when it gets close to fight time, because they're almost hypersensitive to things that are being said at that point. Especially when they get on the bigger stages, because there's social media, people are messaging them saying they're fucking knocked out and this and that. So you've got to be cautious of that, and you pick things up. Like I always try and pick up phrases they use or what motivates them. I always try and find out what motivates them, and you're always trying to use that. If they've got a psychologist, I might try and talk to the psychologist, and obviously that's confidential stuff, so they can only tell me so much, but what they are willing to tell me, can I use that, can I utilise that? But at the end of the day, I think some of it is a little bit innate, like being able to speak to people and being able to coach people. Either you've got that or you've kind of not got that. I've seen people backstage with fighters who just don't know how to act. Maybe it's they get nervous because it's always been backstage.
You kind of meet these people in life though, and you just know they're missing that part. And I think it can be developed, but I think you're right. I think there is definitely a gift that comes with it.
Absolutely, and like I've met numerous guys as well who are like got degrees left, right, and centre, but they cannot coach to save themselves, and they don't know what they're saying, and they don't. It might be just they don't know about the sport as well, so they don't realise what's at stake, and they're saying stupid stuff.
Just disconnected, isn't it?
Yeah, completely.
It's like book smart, but not. It's not the wisdom that comes with it.
Absolutely.
And that's what I think you said before, that you get caught up in like learning all these qualifications, but you don't want to be chasing qualifications. Are you still in that sort of headspace? Is there anything that you're still looking to pursue from a educational standpoint?
I'm always looking to go on courses. It's quite hard as a strength and conditioning coach because there's not many, and if they are, they're usually in fucking America or Australia. So I'm always wanting to go on courses, but I don't want to be going on courses for the sake of getting that end like certificate or whatever it may be. There's a course in the UK it's got an 80% fail rate for the first time.
Right.
If you do it the first time, 80% of the class fail. And I remember thinking about that and being like, if my mum and dad had an 80% fail rate of their class, they would get sacked. So either something's wrong with the coursework or something wrong with the teacher. Then I realised to reset, you've got to pay £500 to reset. And I was like, well, this is just a business model at the end of the day. So that's what they're wanting people to fail, so they pay them again to reset. So I was like, well, I'm not going on that course. And I think you just realise what courses are actually worth your while and what are just kind of ticking boxes exercises to tell people, oh, I've got this qualification.
Sometimes it's a hard, expensive lesson, isn't it? You're going through it and you're like, this is just the same bullshit. It's the same stuff,
Yeah, like people are, especially nowadays with online courses, people can be very
mentorships.
Very quick to be like, oh, I'm going to do an online course now. And that's why I've not done one ever, because I'm like, I want to get all my ducks in a row and be able to be confident to be put on an online course for people, whereas people just put on one, and if they've got good marketing, people will sign up. And I've signed up for one before. I'm like, this is fucking.
Sometimes marketing's everything, isn't it? And that's a nice little segue. So talking about marketing, then when do you get in front of the camera? When do you start making content around?
As soon as possible.
Yeah.
As soon as possible. And I remember it's always going to be a struggle when you first do it, because you're going to think, I'm going to look like a fucking.
Were you active in social media?
Just like socially active, you know what I mean? Like I had an Instagram, I had a Facebook, but I wasn't like posting on it. It was just me and my mates out, you know what I mean? Posting stuff, you know what I mean?
So try to change your identity then.
So I think what I did first was maybe put up videos of me hitting PBs in the gym, and then like I would go a little bit more and a bit more and a bit more. But I remember knowing instantly, I knew straight away, I was like, this is the thing that will get you big, like, and will get you clients. Whether people want to like that or not, that's just a fact. You know what I mean? And I remember thinking, I need to speak on camera. And obviously the first video I did, it took about 40 takes. It was probably 20 seconds long. It took about 40 takes.
I think everyone's got the same story.
Sweating. I know. And then you put it up and nothing happened.
2 likes.
Yeah. And then you realize
4 hours of content and it's like a couple of likes.
In a way, the little amount of likes and the little amount of views is almost a reassurance to you. Because like I think people think that their world's going to collapse when they put up a story or a post of them speaking. And then when you realise that no one really gives a fuck.
It's overcoming that fear. Yeah. It's usually the part within you. It's no one else really cares.
No one cares. So then you just rattle them off.
So did this start taking off when you got those big names earlier on? Did that start to snowball a wee bit more, like, authority in the space?
Yeah. It's about getting that authority, and being a authority figure in your space is massive. So yeah, and also, like, when you have clients and you're tagging them, they're going to put it on their story. So therefore, you're going to get more audience, and that's why I wanted to pick those kind of micro influencers or guys who were known. Yeah, because I knew that's what would happen.
So what's like the next big client you land, or the next sort of exciting client you land from an athletic side of things? So you got fighters, got boxers, MMA fighters. You get in the world of football as well, or is that just as a byproduct?
So at the start, I was also doing Gen Pop because financially, you've just got to. And then I think I got like a footballer first from Dundee, maybe a Dundee United footballer. I can't quite remember. But the first big one was Paul Craig. And that was just through a message on Instagram, and that was the first big one. I was like, holy fuck.
I remember watching your TikTok on this a couple of months back. It's like you're just hustling.
Aye.
You're just like, you know what, I'm going to shoot my shot.
Yeah, why not?
Just throw it out.
It's like trying to chat up a girl.
But guys.
So I've sent.
Do you remember what you said?
Hey, good looking. No, what it was he put up a 5K time. He got 19 and a half minutes, and that's sub 20 is always pretty good, I reckon, for a 5K, especially for someone who's not a runner. For someone who's 100 kilograms, that's fucking good going. He said he wanted to get it sub 19. So I messaged him and said, mate, brilliant time. Like, obviously, he didn't follow me. I followed him at this point, but I messaged him saying, look, brilliant time, mate, but you'll probably be better for your MMA by working more anaerobic work, more speed, repeat sprintability and all this kind of stuff. So he obviously saw that, and he was like, I made sure to sound like I knew what I was talking about a little bit, and he messaged me back being like, oh, what should I do instead? And I was like, maybe try this, and this. And he was like, would you want to take me for a session? I was like, yeah, I'll see if I can fit you in.
Oh, I'm free.
Turns out I'm free. So yeah, but I've sent messages to countless people. But the awkward part is when they see it and they rubber you, which 99% do, and then you meet them later on, you're like,
you need to be able to handle rejection.
Absolutely.
So that's another thing that you're getting more resilient on.
More resilient,
for sure.
Yep.
So were you like? Did it feel like a fanboy at this point, or were you like, oh no, this is another good chance?
Another thing I was very, very cautious about doing was not being a fanboy. So even nowadays,
this is important.
Yeah, even now when I'm at these UFC events and I see like, oh my god, that's so and so,
big names,
big names, and people like I've grown up watching. I'm very, I've never got a picture with any of them because I don't want it to be that kind of fanboy relationship.
Such a hard thing to balance, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Like, it obviously gets easier the more you see famous people and stuff like that. But yeah, like I just remember thinking, don't have it. Like, don't be asking for a fucking picture from them or a fucking signed top or signed gloves. And I just remember like, nah, we're going to do this professionally and make sure it's on a proper level field.
How many years was it into your like coaching? Did you start working with Paul just recently in the past year or so, or was it before that?
A few years of Paul now. Yeah, so halfway through, maybe 3 years in, 2.5 years in, he was my first big client. Yeah, and then it kind of just snowballed after that because I got like a guy called Stevie Ray who's fought in the UFC, and he's a big fighter. And then
how did the interactions play out then? Like, are you, because you're maybe tagging Paul or you're working with Paul?
Yeah,
is that just getting new people following you and then people inquiring?
Yeah, it's just like instantly as soon as you start tagging Paul and things, and you start putting them up on his page and his story, you're gaining thousands of followers from that straight away. And then obviously everyone wants to be like, oh, I want to train with the guy who trains Paul Craig, or I want to train the guy who trains with UFC fighters. So more clients through the door instantly, more program sales instantly. It's massive. Yeah, so it's a big thing.
How do you win his trust over? Because right now you're just a guy in the DMs.
No, that's hard to do because him and his team at the time, as well as head coach at the time, they were very cautious about that because they must have had people before trying to come in.
Sure, and glory hunters, glory hunters, ride the wave.
I'll give you this, and they're just people trying to tag on. So it does take a bit of time, but I think if you're good at your job and you realise your own lane, like you're not trying to interfere with other things, because there's loads of things that fighters do wrong and athletes do wrong from a strength and conditioning perspective. And if I come in day one and go, right, this needs to change, it's
like a dick swinging contest at this point.
They're going to be like, who the fuck are you? And I might be right in what I'm saying. Like, you might need to change that, but it should be slowly and surely when you've gained them trust, right, well, maybe we'll introduce this. What about if we do this now? What about this? Whereas if you come in thinking you're the big I am and try to change everything, they're going to be very, very resistant to it. So I think that's how you do it.
I think that's the art, though, being able to communicate to people and being a a people person at the end of the day as well. It sounds like you had a lot of passion for this anyway. Of like here, I think I can help with this. Do you remember when that turning point was? Like, what was the first session like? And like, talk us through that.
So the first session, So the first session, he'd already got a program from the UFC Performance Institute.
Mm-hmm.
So they give programs to all UFC fighters if they ask for it, basically. So I remember thinking, fucking hell, like, what am I going to be able to teach this guy? Like, but I remember it was good. He'd done stuff wrong.
Aye.
And I was like, fuck.
I was going to say, how generic was it?
Yeah, no,
Were they all right? Because they take, like, they get a lot of good data, don't they? They collect a shit ton of data.
PI are fucking superb.
Yeah.
Like, miles ahead of boxing. Like, it's one of the best facilities I've been to, 100%. So I knew the program was good, right? I wasn't worried about the program, but the way he was doing things was wrong. Like, the way he was setting up his bench press, the way he was putting his hands, the way he was doing a deadlift, all these things were slightly wrong. And I remember thinking, fucking brilliant. Because if he came in and just done everything perfectly, I know the program's good.
Imposter syndrome starting to ramp up.
Exactly. I would have been, what can I teach this cunt? Why is he coming to me? But because he did shit wrong, I was like, oh, that's superb. So I remember just telling him, let's do this. You should be doing this instead. And I think he changed his bench press technique on that day. I told him that he was going too narrow with his hands.
Most guys with long limbs do, don't they? They always go into slow.
And he wasn't leg driving enough and stuff like that. And I think he got like a new PP on his free rep max or his 5 rep max, where he was needing to do that day. And I was like, brilliant. So that was it. From there I was
locked in.
The races. Yeah.
So let's talk about something that's way overlooked and probably one of the reasons very little strength and conditioning actually happens in the world of sport and athletics. The head coach, and maybe not the head, I don't know what you call it, like whether it's, so if we transfer it to football, the football coach, you don't need to lift any of that heavyweight stuff. We play more football, we get better at football. And there is a balance of not affecting the skill of the sport that you're doing. And I think this is a fine balance, but I think this is why strength and conditioning gets a bad rap. And why so many people avoid it, like lifting weights is dangerous, lifting weights is bad for your joints and all this sort of stuff. How has that been to battle through your career?
Fucking nightmare.
Has it been hard?
It's getting less hard now. I think, one, because obviously people are becoming to know me as a coach, but also because with social media, people realise that they need to be doing it a little bit more. So it has become easier. Now, there's still like an old school mindset. A lot more in boxing than in MMA. I
was just about to say boxing. I had, so Scott, who owns Rivals next door, he's got a professional boxing career, and he's not lifted weights for the last 5-6 years. And I was like, man, see if you would. Like, it would have been pretty cool to see you through that. But he's like, no, but I don't need to. And I was like, just because you don't need to doesn't mean you still shouldn't. Because there's still an untapped opportunity there.
Absolutely.
You said that about Sean Strickland as well.
Strickland, I would love to train Sean Strickland.
Like, how crazy is that? I didn't realise he never...
just spars, basically.
He just fights all the time.
Nut job.
Crazy. So, like, why do you think it's frowned upon, or was frowned upon?
I just think myths are very powerful things. And I think when they become so ingrained, like lifting heavy makes you slow, then it's very hard. People are scared, and people don't realise the potential of it because they're not doing it. So they think they're fine. So it's very hard to prove to them that if you do weights, you're going to be even better, because they've heard all these horror stories about people getting injured or people getting slow or whatever they think it is, or maybe, especially in fighting, moving up a weight category because he's been lifting too much, he's got too muscle bound and stuff like that. So I think it's just become ingrained in them that they don't need to do it. And it's something that we're slowly but surely kind of unraveling and unpicking and making sure that they kind of disappear. But it is a bit of a struggle sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially with the older generation. I remember as a coach, he was like, he's literally about 80 years old and he was dead against it. And like, if you're 80 years old and you're dead against it, I'm not going to prove you otherwise. Like, you're setting your ways at that point. You know what I mean? There's no chance.
You win the athlete over at this point, don't you?
That's exactly what you do. You try and win the athlete over, and if you can't win the head coach over, then that's is what it is. You know what I mean? So
let's talk about like misconceptions of strength and conditioning. We'll also come back to your story in a sec, where you're going from in a gym to your own facility, because that's a cool move, isn't it? And then obviously travelling the world through UFC and all that sort of stuff, or through the fight camps. When it comes to strength and conditioning, you've got all your different pillars, of course, your general strength, the mobility, flexibility, plyometrics, output, all that sort of stuff. How do you categorise them? Like, what would you say is like makes up good strength and conditioning. Of course, this is different from person to person, working on their weaknesses. But what would you say the main power stuff is?
The main thing that I do is not strength or it isn't conditioning. It's injury prevention. Yeah. So that, because there's no point, I've said this before, there's no point being the strongest, more athletic man in the world or woman in the world if you can't make it to your competition because you're injured, right? So that is number one. So we'll look at load, and we'll look at, you'll look at the athlete. Have you had any injury? What's your injury history like? Look at the sport. Where are people in MMA likely to get injuries? Well, usually it's shoulders, especially boxers as well. Shoulders, elbows, knees a lot of time. Jiu-jitsu athletes might be more hips and things like that. Footballers, it's going to be groin and hamstrings. So we look at that. That's my first that thing I do.
Yeah, it's mad that it's just a big game of stress management.
Yeah, it is.
And like you said, injury prevention. Do you believe that when it comes to the injury side of things, because I think this is mad in the high rock space just now, the amount of injuries that you see. Are you up to date with like more of that fitness racing and that sort of stuff? So it's great. Gen Pop's getting people into that, but it's almost like taking someone off the street and going, right, you're fighting next week, straight into camp, not even camp, you're missing camp, straight into the event, and of course injuries then happen or the intensity ramps up. Is that a hard thing to battle then with athletes coming through the door, because they're usually dialed in? I can do more than your Susie down the road. I love the video you done recently on anaerobic sessions, aerobic session, 60 minutes, no need. It baffles me. It blows my mind that people are doing that 3-4 times a week. So talk about that for a second, 'cause I think that's where people overreach.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing with dealing with athletes. They are type A personalities that usually want to do more. So trying to teach them that it's not about doing more. It's not about training harder, it's about training smarter. That is by far the hardest thing. They think, like I say, the whole 60-minute thing is created because of classes. You can't charge someone for a 20-minute class, so you have to make it an hour long. That's not the optimal way to do it. If you're an athlete, some of my sprint sessions are 2 minutes of work, 30-second sprints on, 30 seconds on, 3 minutes off, so it's like 2 minutes of work. And that's all you need.
Why?
Because when we're chasing certain adaptations, there's specific things we need to do for that, and it's not always best. You don't get those adaptations by going harder and doing more of them, because there's a point of diminishing returns, and people usually go past that point of diminishing returns without even realising it. They think a 10k is better than a 5k, 5k is better than a 2k, when they don't really know what they're trying to get. They're just trying to work harder. They'll burn more calories by doing 10k, but are we trying to burn calories? Is that the adaptation we're going for? Is that the goal? Is weight loss the adaptation? Or are we trying to get better at X, Y, or Z? And they don't realise that. So that is very, very hard to change in an athlete. And also when they're sitting doing nothing, they're thinking about their fight, and they're thinking, my opponent's fucking training.
He's working hard on it.
And that's a massive part of mental toughness as well, is resting and having the courage almost to rest and to recover.
It's the vulnerability in it as well. It's like you say, you're sitting there and you can convince yourself you're okay and you can push through a session. That's the power of the mind.
Yes.
But the power of the mind is also equally the opposite of that.
Absolutely.
Like, here, chill out.
Absolutely.
Sit in these awkward thoughts.
Absolutely.
When it comes to like athlete side things, boxers, MMA fighters, have you took any athletes on from like fitness racing or like racing side of things?
I've had a few High Rocks athletes on programs and things like that. I've not been critical of High Rocks and CrossFit, but I've slagged it off a little bit for athletes. Now,
it's terrible for athletes.
For athletes it's shocking.
I would stand by you with this point, and look, I would say I'd err on the side of being more addicted to some of these sports than MMA and that sort of stuff. But from an athletic point of view,
it's not good.
Rubbish.
But brilliant for Gen Pop. I don't like for getting into going to the gym. Absolutely,
it's like their sport.
Yeah, it's their sport. So I don't believe athletes should be doing it. And I've got an athlete just now who is always doing High Rocks and is always doing it. But he's always getting injured. Like,
your body is telling you.
And he's like, yeah, but my shoulder's nothing to do with my High Rocks. And I'm like, yeah, but you've got to look at your body as an organism as a whole. And sometimes you overload it with stress, and it's going to come out in different areas. Like, people get stressed out and they get spots. You know what I mean? Like,
or colds. I think this is a massive. Your immune system
your immune
breaking
system,
down is a massive.
So like, it doesn't have to be, oh well, just because I was doing high rocks and you hurt your whatever. It can be related.
I love how you saying it's not his shoulder, but it's 100 wall balls at the end of it.
Yeah,
I think it could be
his shoulder. You're right.
It generally
could be shoulder. I was trying to think of a bit that high rocks people don't hurt, but I could think of one. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. The stress is stress at the end of the day, and if you overload your body with too much stress, it's going to break down with something, whether it's a cold or cold sore or whatever it may be.
It's all to do with stress management. I usually say that to clients, that even in the gen pop side of things, forget athletics or being an athlete in that sense. You can still overreach, and that's why the adrenaline junkies, the high intensity workout circuits classes, it's like you need to pull back on that because it's actually breaking down your body, which is crazy. So let's circle back to like when you get the kind of opportunity to have your own gym. Do you have savings at this point? Is it like is it just fuck it, I need to do this, go for it?
Had a bit of money, didn't have a lot. Obviously the bank of mum and dad's always a great thing. So I tapped into that. Very well.
How's that retirement? S&P 500.
Yeah, exactly. So tapped into that as much as I could. But it was a necessity that I got done, so I just had to go for it. Sometimes you're forced into a corner, but it's the best thing for you.
Oh yeah. Like you always do better under pressure. And I think from your story so far, like you're resilient, and the resilience that you have in your mindset and good support and all that sort of things around you, you know you're going to make that work.
Yes.
Backing up a sec, like what's your parents like at this? Did you drop out of uni then? Was that tough to do, like, or were they supportive?
No, I didn't tell them.
Oh right, good old typical, yeah, like that.
I pretended I was going to uni. I think I was going to the gym, and then they'd be like,
smashing PBs.
Any classes today? No, I just had the one. Like, because you can only go to the gym for so many hours. You know what I mean? I just had the one class today, and I can't remember how long I kept that charade going for, or charade.
You know, get your graduation coming up? No, it's next year.
I'm doing a master's and it's getting extended, and just nonsense. Yeah, I can't remember how long I kept that. I can't remember how I told them. But they just knew it wasn't for me.
Must have been nerve-wracking though. Like,
absolutely.
It sounds like you hold your parents in high regard.
Yeah.
Like they're role models in your life. Not wanting to disappoint them.
Yeah.
That's why you're ripping up the letters, and truly, if you didn't want to disappoint them, you'd behave better in school, but that wasn't an option for you. So they start seeing you make this, or I guess what's their support like going to being a prison officer and that? They quite happy, job for life? Because
before that, like I mentioned, I was a bouncer, so I'm working Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's not a career, right? I'm just fucking about, and like it's fun. Like you get attention from girls, you've got your camaraderie there with the lads. You get free entry into the nightclubs when you want. Like so, it's
get to know the other bouncers. So you're like never getting knocked back.
Never getting knocked back. So it's a laugh, right? But it's not a career. So I think at that point they were a bit worried, but it was at that point a bit too old for them to tell me what to do. But yeah, that's not a career. So when I made the switch to being a prison officer and I got that job, they were really happy because they knew that that's a career. They obviously didn't know how stressful and how like obviously because I've never been in jail. But yeah, they were very, very supportive, and unfortunately they've been supportive throughout pretty much everything I've done. Even when I made the jump, like my mum's very, very cautious, so she was like, "Oh no," but my dad's more like, "Okay, go for it." So I'm very fortunate.
It's a good job you had that mindset shift there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because
if he didn't, I would be in big trouble.
Could have been a different story. So when you've made the leap, right? You went self-employed. You're starting to get a bit of you're getting a name for yourself. You're getting the reward of people are actually paying you money. So like, okay, right, this can be something. How long is that period before you get offered your own gym? A couple of years.
Yeah, 3 years.
Right. 3 years. And then in that period, you said that when you were going self-employed, your partner at the time was going self-employed. That relationship, I take it, did you end up bumping heads and that sort of stuff? Or did it just end? Or
yeah, we broke up actually only a year ago.
Oh, did you? Right,
so that's another thing. Right. Mindset changes.
Fuck.
Like you've got to have your mindset in a really good place to deal with something like that. So like I was a 9-year relationship, had 2 dogs together, lost multiple dogs.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? So stuff like that. So you've got to make sure that, and I did a few things for that to make sure like, no, I'm gonna nail this breakup.
It's not something that you ever hear, is it?
Yeah, no, exactly. So but she was doing that at the time and I was doing that. So that was the other big stress, was the fact that we were both doing it at the time. Yeah. But I didn't end because of anything like that. Because of that.
She's made that work.
Yeah, it worked, yeah.
she does her thing. You then move into your own facility. You go, like, are you living on your own, or are you living together? Or you
We were
got your own
living
place?
together at the time, so
Okay.
I had my own place at the time.
That's another milestone. Like,
Yeah.
did you have that through the salary side of
Jail,
things?
yeah.
Aye, so
Yeah.
that's always a good wee thing.
Yes.
I bought my house before I went,
Thank God, yeah.
and then my mortgage is about to renew, and I was like, yeah, still in BT,
Yeah, still doing that.
still working away,
Yep.
just auto renew it. So when you get the opportunity to have your own place, is there a worry from mortgage to pay and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah. It's like, well, I've never done it before. I've never ran, like I said, there's no one in my family who's ever ran a business before. It's quite a big facility. So it was like, this is way more than I need. But there was nothing else kind of popping up. So it's a massive stress. I'm fortunate. I've also been quite confident in my abilities as well. So I've always thought like I'll make it work. And like at that time I did have bigger clients. So I thought if it all goes tits up, at least I can kind of fall back and train in 1-to-1. And I'll just go through and travel through and train them kind of thing. So there was a little bit of a backup to it, but it's still a massive investment. A gym, as you know,
Aye,
it's
it's
a hell
crazy.
of a lot of money.
What was do you know what your kit out and all that was sitting at roughly?
Probably all in, you're talking 60k.
Aye. It's heartbreaking to see, isn't it?
Oh, mats. Why are mats so fucking expensive?
They quoted me like 17 grand for mats
Aye.
initially, and I was like, hey, look, they're nice mats, but
Aye.
it's fucking mats at the end of the day.
Mats,
What's the
exactly.
cheapest you can give me? I think
100%.
around like 3 or 4 grand. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah,
but mats was because I had my ice setting, nice racks, nice bars, and I was like, I need mats. So like mats is what makes the gym look good. So you get your kit out, you get it all in. I can only imagine the ups and downs of carrying all the equipment in and out and all that sort of stuff. Workout in itself, isn't it?
Fortunately, I paid the extra 500.
Oh, did you?
just
Nice, fair play.
And then
Biggest regret I've got. To be fair, my building's flat. What's
That's
yours
true.
like? You got
No, I'm
stairs?
upstairs.
Aye,
I'm
fuck.
upstairs. Nah, fuck that. And then when they came up, they were like, "You can give us a hand if you want." I was like, "Ah, fuck my shoulder."
Sorry, I've actually got
Go.
some admin work.
Yeah.
We've got phone calls and stuff. You mentioned training. You're like some fighters at home, and so is that just something that's easier to do when it's in fight camp? Travel to?
Yeah. So
Like
twice a week, I'll travel through to Bathgate to a gym called Higher Level, and I've got about maybe 5 guys there that I train at higher level. So I will just do it. They've got like a little gym
Good.
in their gym,
Yeah.
so I'll just do it there. And the guy James Doolan is a great coach, but also a great guy, and doesn't charge me for it because he knows it gets the other guy's better.
Aye.
And so
It's a bit of partnership then.
yeah, a
at
bit
that
of
point,
partnership. Yeah, he's a good guy. So I just do that. That's how I do it.
And you ever been to clients' garage gyms or anything
Yeah,
like
so
that?
Paul's got his own shed.
Yeah, his facility.
He's got his facility.
Aye.
Yeah, the shred shed. He
The
calls
shred shed. I like it.
it. So we go through there. It's decked out with everything we need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's
This is the hard thing when you get a gym though, because you see everything can fit into a shed, a room like this, and you're like, I don't need a massive place.
yeah.
Are you glad you got the bigger place though?
Yeah, because it's got like maybe 5 rooms off the side of it, which allows me to rent them out to masseuses.
Right.
So that's
Good.
been a massive
Covers
thing.
everything.
Covers everything I need. Financially, that covers my rent and everything. So
Yeah.
it's pretty good that way.
Brilliant. So how does the gym evolve for there? Like, where does this whole journey that you're going through at this point, I know you've mentioned a couple of mentorships and stuff that you've done. Do they play a big part in this, or is it sort of trial and error?
It's a bit trial and error, but having those mentorships, you do become friends with these people as well. Like, so Danny Wilson, big boxing coach, he's my mate. A few other guys now that are massive, they're my mates. So it's useful to have these connections and networking, essentially, to be able to ask them, like, they've got their own gyms, like, what should I do here? Like, what should I do there? The number one thing with my gym that I knew straight away was I didn't want to be tied down to the gym. So, because I'm traveling a lot with my athletes,
Aye.
I don't want to be getting someone to cover it and open up at 6 a.m. in the morning, and I don't want to be going down at 6 a.m. in the morning and closing 9 a.m. at night. So I knew straight away, like, I need to get a keypad system on the door, so it's 24 hours. That's probably one of the first things I did. CCTV, so no one robs me in the middle of the night, shit like that. But it does help when you start to know people in the world, and you can kind of bounce ideas off them and ask them for a bit of guidance.
Yeah, because you always want, like, to get further ahead, you want to ask the questions of people who are further ahead, because ultimately they've made the mistakes. What would you say, looking back, would you change anything from opening your gym?
Probably, yeah. I would probably bring someone on earlier. I've done this now recently. I've just brought someone on who bought half the gym, and I probably should have done that sooner.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So talk us through, like, why was that important?
So I realised, like, I was spinning too many plates. So I had the gym, I had my one-to-one clients, which meant I was travelling as well. I had my online programming that I was doing and online clients. I had my online content I was doing. And I just felt like I wasn't doing any of it to my fullest ability.
Mm-hmm.
And it meant the gym had loads of stuff wrong with it, and there's always things at the gym. Although I don't employ any of the people there, always things crops up, like he's falling out with him, or this person's done this, or this person's leaving weights around. And there's always numerous little things going about, right? So when this guy approached me, he's very good at all the stuff I'm shit at, which is health and safety, licensing, legislation, whatever, contracts. He's good at all that shit.
Right.
Stuff I do not like. So when he made the offer to buy half the gym, and he doesn't have any like part of my online stuff or anything like that, but just have half the gym and he'll do all that. I was like, fucking brilliant. And see, since having that, it's been great. Not only for that side, but also for having someone to speak to and being like, should we do that? Because sometimes you question yourself, like, oh, how much should I charge membership? What kind of structure should it be? But when you've got someone who's ran businesses before and you can kind of bounce ideas off them, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
So I think I would have maybe tried to go in with someone, or maybe even hired a business manager or someone who is a bit more clued up than I am about the runnings and the day-to-day and what you need, that kind of thing.
Do you ever feel like quite lonely in that sense then?
Yeah, it was, because although I had a partner at the time, she was very, very busy with her side of things, with her own business, and that was taken off, and then my business was taken off, so it's like, and they're completely separate. Hers with like makeup and things, obviously the gym. So there's no real crossover there.
And you're the only person in your family that's doing this.
So like,
what about circle of friends?
Only one of them as well.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, all my circle of friends, my close mates, they're all employed. So you've got no one really to speak to. And I think probably there's a brilliant place in Dundee called the Business Gateway. I probably should have used them. And I probably should have went down to them and been like, look, how do I do this? What do I do? You know what I mean? Because you just don't know.
Yeah, pissing in the wind sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. And it caused me, because I didn't know these things, it caused me to bury my head in the sand a lot of it. And I got it running to a good point, don't get me wrong, like it makes money and it's doing well, but I now realise the potential of it and I can do a lot more, and that's what we're going to do in the new year.
I heard you on one of your older podcasts say that you really struggle because you're not a materialistic guy, and you struggle with this kind of thing that you have a passion for, but also making it a profitable business.
Yeah,
I even seen you, the way you said entrepreneur earlier, like turning your face. It's obviously a very snotty word now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's thrown about so easy. It's almost like influencer, isn't it?
Exactly.
Whereas back in the day, that was something that, that was the boxers, the athletes and all this sort of stuff. How did you, are you better with it now, I assume, or is it still a battle?
It's still a battle, but at the end of the day, you obviously you need money to do the things you want to do. So I am better with it, don't get me wrong. But I do feel, especially with the clients I'm training, boxers and MMA fighters when they're starting off, they don't have any money. Like, they just don't. Like, until you're in the UFC or until you're like a big name, you're getting paid peanuts. So I find it hard to balance training them, get paid well myself, but also not take the piss out of them and not like fucking have them worrying about their bills and providing for their family and stuff like that. So that is always a balancing act with myself. But I'm definitely better now.
Yeah. Well, I'd imagine the social media side of things maybe helped a wee bit with this. Talking about like monetization through social media, like when did that start blowing up a wee bit more? When did you realise it had potential?
Probably about 3 years ago when I got my gym, because I think that's when I started doing it properly, online programming and like personalised programming. And I remember one day I woke up and I'd sold 4 programs and I equated to like 120 odd quid or something. I was like, I just got paid 120 quid for sleeping. And I remember thinking about that, thinking, fuck, this is good. So I remember pushing that more and more and more and more and more. And then there was 1 month when I made a ridiculous amount of money in a month. I was like, fuck.
If for a product that's created, the work's been effort, all you need to do is market it.
Yeah, like the one-off programs, like, so you don't have any like contact with the person and it's all automated. So it's not like you've got to send them the email even or send them the program. It's all done. So like that was huge. And I think that's where people, like, you can be a PT one-to-one and you'll make good money, don't you? You can make good money being a PT.
Yeah, shit done a living.
Yeah, you make fucking really good money. But there's always a ceiling to it. You can only work so many hours in a week. Whereas with online programming and selling programs, it's unlimited, really.
Yeah, more flexibility.
Yeah, it's unlimited. You can
I noticed when I went on my honeymoon, So I was like 50, 60 sessions a week. I was right in the hustle mode. I was like, I love this. Fucking, this is great. Like, I had so much. I think the pain of going back to the corporate workplace was also there as well. So you know what it's like. You're just full of that. I wish I could get some of that energy back now. But I went my honeymoon and I was like, I can't do this forever.
No.
I was like, I could probably do it. I could hold out another couple of years for sure, but I need to think a wee bit smarter about how I do this, because I know I'm teaching clients here, like, we want to do the least amount possible to listen, most amount of training, overtraining, all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, I'm overworking here. This can only last so long. So the online is a good move. When you're doing your, was that through TikTok? Was it through Instagram? When did you make the move to TikTok?
I made the TikTok move quite early. And just knew it was going to get. I just knew it was a good app. Almost like at the start, it was very young. Like, people used to slag you. Oh, you're on TikTok.
I was going to say, did you see all the dances and stuff? Will we go forward back in your TikTok and see that?
No. I was, unfortunately, I was old enough not to be doing them. But I was like, I can't remember how old I was when I got on TikTok, but I was certainly too old for it. And people were like, that's for fucking 12-year-olds and stuff like that. So, But I was like, just you wait.
Aye.
And I'm glad I stuck in with TikTok. My only regret with TikTok is I didn't do more of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wish I was posting what I'm posting now much earlier, and I should have done it, and I would have been much, much bigger on TikTok. But yeah, that was where I probably make most of my money from online sales, is via TikTok. Yeah, you'll find that, like, or I found TikTok's like a younger audience, so you're maybe not selling your high-end ticket offers, but you're certainly selling like your lower ones, and you're selling a lot of them. So TikTok's been great for me.
Built into that. What was your kind of like theory behind the style of content that you posted? Was it just what you liked or what you saw in the space?
What I liked, I always try and see what works and kind of reverse engineer. Okay, why is that popping off? Like, what's going on here? Social media has been huge for me, so I've been like quite stringent on learning quite a lot about it and how it works and how the algorithm works and all this kind of stuff. But it's just trial and error a lot of times. Like, it's taken me a while to find that I do like talking head things like green screen over another fighter doing S&C, and that's popped off, and that's been really good for my business. But I'm not been doing that. I've only been doing that for maybe the past year. So it's been a lot of trial and error, and things will work for you, and then they'll stop working for you,
and then you shift, change.
Because there's only so many times you can show people compound lifts. I mean, everyone knows what a bench press is. You know what I mean? And that's why people go and do fucking crazy stuff on Instagram and do squats on Busu balls. And
seek the novelty and the nuance.
Yeah, they want to show something completely different and pretend like that's the secret ingredient and why you're not getting gains.
Is there a fair point though? I feel as personal trainers or coaches, have you ever been caught up in the world where you're feeling like the program's almost too basic for this high performing athlete, someone who you maybe see has this natural gift towards this sport, and you're like, right, we need to maximise, so I need to do these weird and wonderful exercises?
Absolutely. I struggle with that, but I also struggle with, this program's quite similar to Steve's program. And like, well, yeah, that's because these things work.
Aye.
You know what I mean? So that's why it's similar to his program. People want, when I personalise a program, obviously I completely personalise it to them, their note goals, their needs, how many days they want, their gym they want. 99% of my athletes will all be doing deadlifts or squats or bench press, compound lifts, because they work. They get you stronger, right? But at some points you do think, fuck, I'm going to need to change this up. I'm going to have to throw in this. And I'm like, wait, why am I putting this in this exercise?
It's the ego.
Yeah, it's because I'm ego.
Social media pressure.
I'm worried. I'm like, oh no, is he going to think this is the exact same program as last time and stress out about it? So that is a worry you always want. But you get better as you get older, I suppose.
Quite controversial what you said there, because there's an argument against squats, bench and deadlifts for whatever reason. There's hate from the bodybuilding world, there's hate from the strength conditioning world, or that athletics world, should I say, where athletes shouldn't be doing these higher risk of injury movements, and it's like, it's just so mental to me. I think it's crazy, because the big, I guess I always call it usually the big three they refer to, the big four, like the overhead press as well. I think that's just as valuable. I've heard you talk about like Stan Efferton. I think he's Stan Efferton. So I remember hearing on his podcast, and one of the first things I done as a personal trainer was get the grip diameter.
Yes.
So what I talk about, like how you assess, because I think this is important. Like, what's the phrase? If you can't assess, if you're not assessing,
you're guessing.
You're guessing. I love that. So that's obviously one element, and for the folks that are listening that don't know, it's basically a grip strength test.
Yes.
Talk us through like why grip is important for you? Obviously, it makes sense from a grappling standpoint, but
absolutely.
more so for fighters and that.
So obviously grappling, huge. If you can grip something harder, you're going to hold it for longer, and it's going to be harder to get out of, right? But it's also connected to your central nervous system. So if you see your grip strength 60 kilograms when you do it, right? You do it one day, it's 50. Has your hand got that much weaker, or is it that you're fatigued? Probably because you're fatigued. So now we know that test took 5 seconds to do. We already know we need to pull back the session. So that's massive for us. Also, it's a massive sign of injuries for combat athletes. If we're punching, we need to have strong hands, strong wrists, strong forearms to protect the muscles, to protect the bones in the hand. So if we find that one hand's 40 kilograms, the other one's 60, we need to work on that hand. And it's usually an indication that they've probably injured it in the past as well. So it's just a really easy test you can do, and you can find out a lot of things from it.
Yeah, it's brilliant for everyone. You're it doesn't matter if you're pulling 30. Also, it's a good. I like doing the assessment right at the start of your journey because it's very easy to improve upon. You'll maybe not see this more so now, but with Gen Pop, just not having the ability to fire up the central nervous system, and that's why compound movements is a great thing. What's other assessments that are your go-tos?
So my testing day will look a little bit like we've got movement assessments. There's functional movement screening. They're just 2 assessments: the overhead squat with a dowel and single leg squat to a box. And then there's another one maybe shoulders, if you can press overhead, because I'll not program in overhead pressing if you cannot.
Yeah, you're pressing in front of you.
Yeah, a wall angel, essentially. If you can't do that, then you're not pressing overhead. Checking your hips. Is it a Jefferson test? I can't remember if it's a Jefferson test or not. But yeah, testing your hips, see how you are there. Ankle mobility is a big one. We test that as well. Then I've got my power test, so we'll do counter movement jump and a squat jump, see if there's any kind of differences between them, and they tell me different things. A broad jump, single leg broad jump again, or is there any imbalances in the leg? Imbalances, obviously we need to improve that, but it's also a sign that you could be at higher risk of injury if you've got higher imbalances between each leg. Then I used to do free RMs. I don't tend to anymore. I feel like I find that out during the course of training them anyway. But I'll go over the lifts because I want to make sure the techniques and see what they're doing.
How often is it off?
9 times out of 10 it's off. Yeah.
It's quite wild, isn't it, to think from some of these athletes, you put them in the top 1% of the world, and you're the still the basic things can be way off.
Can't do. So I'll test that, but although I won't do a free RM, I'll go to a point where they struggle because that gives me an indication of what is weak on them.
Default patterns, what they got.
If they're failing at the top end of a bench press, usually your triceps are weak. We need to work on that. Just give you little clues. Then I'll do a bit of a conditioning test. Usually there's 2 I like to do, kind of more aerobic and a more anaerobic one. The aerobic one is more about getting your heart rate as high as we can possibly get it and see what your recovery rate is in 60 seconds.
How quick it drops.
How quick it drops in 60 seconds.
What do you do to get that? Just assault bike or runs or?
2 minutes on, 1 minute off on a treadmill, usually. Assault bikes can be a bit heavy, so usually the legs will go before the heart kind of rate gets up there. So we'll do that heart rate monitor and see how quickly you drop it. An athlete's aiming for 50 beats in 60 seconds. Then what we'll do is the power test will be on the assault bike because you can generate maximum amount of power. There's no technique really involved in an assault bike compared to sprinting. There's no chance of injury on an assault bike compared to sprinting. 30 seconds, how high you can get it, what is your wattage, and where does it maintain? So look at 30 seconds, how quickly can you get it up there as well is important. And then, where does it end up? Say it's 1600 watts and you're finishing at 800 watts, where there's a 50% drop off in your power.
Right.
We need to improve that.
Got you.
That's what we do.
I never really thought about the sprinting side of things and doing it on an assault bike. I do something, I've only just recently introduced this called the benchmark test, bulletproof benchmarks. And the way I was thinking about it was what do people do in their testing phases? So I was set these benchmarks, and if I can measure that over 8 weeks, and it's here's the proof it's working. Absolutely, it's not about the weight and the scale, blah, 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 right? But I had sprints in mind, and I'm always saying you're going, if you've never sprinted before, let's just look at your running technique. And you get your guy who still thinks he's still in his 20s and went all out, pulled his hamstring. I was man, we just we always make sure we're primed to mobility, and it just shows you there's still a higher risk injury at these big outputs. So you don't find that happens much in the assault bikes then?
Not at all. I've never had an injury on an assault bike, and they're going flat out. Whereas I would never put them, because they're not sprinters. I would never put them on and get them doing maximal
Yeah, it's a fair
sprints,
point. Yeah.
just because usually they're hamstring goes. So I just like assault bike, see what the watch is up to. And it's full body as well.
Of course, because you're using upper body and lower body. Let's talk about Rio de Janeiro. I'm terrible with names. De Janeiro doesn't go quite well with a Scottish accent, does it?
You've got to put an accent
So, one of the more exciting opportunities then when you're looking back.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough where I've managed to travel around the world with this job. Vegas, I think I've been to Vegas like 6 times because it's like the home of fighting, so you're there quite a lot. And then I've been to just even places like Tenerife for like a fight camp. It was great. I've been there a few times. And of course Rio de Janeiro. And Rio de Janeiro is absolutely beautiful, but is incredibly scary.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, I probably wouldn't go again, if I'm honest.
Aye.
There's too many stories I've heard of people getting robbed at gunpoint, and I nearly got robbed by 3 kids who'll just run up and grab your phone. And yeah, don't get me wrong, it's beautiful, but the favelas are so close to where like you would stay, even in a nice part, that they'll just come in, rob you, or do whatever they need to do, and then they'll run off to the favelas. And I've heard some absolutely horrendous stories out there. So my friend who was out there, a guy called Chris Bungard, who's a fighter, he got an AK-47 pulled on him.
Oh really?
One girl, she was like she was the manager, but she was also a translator because she speaks Portuguese. Her cousin got shot in the head in the beach recently, like at 4 o'clock in Copacabana Beach, the main beach. Got shot in the head and robbed.
So is it just over basic robberies?
Usually it's just robberies, but they do
stuff.
They usually do. They do a lot of kidnappings now. So yeah, that happens a lot, and they'll rob you at gunpoint. And
I think you're a bit oblivious to this going over first.
Yes, but because fortunately or maybe unfortunately, because of my background, I'm very aware of my surroundings.
Yeah.
But I may be super, super cautious because I realise like there's people watching you the whole time.
You can literally see it,
see what's going on.
Skills that you picked up.
Whereas my mate, who's oblivious, he's like a nutritionist
that
coach.
was so nice here.
I love it here. I might put your fucking phone away. And he doesn't have a clue. But yeah, I've had lots of stories like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, from people.
What was it? So what was like maybe one of the first pinch me moments when you're becoming a strength and conditioning coach and being able to go more into the fight world and all that sort of stuff?
It was probably having a UFC fighter.
Right.
That was the moment. And I remember when Paul was walking out, they mentioned me.
How did they?
Yeah, he's working now with Enhanced Sports Performance, but I was like, that's cool. That's cool as fuck.
Made it legit.
Yeah. So
what was that for? What one was that for?
That might have been the Jamal Hill fight. So he won, he broke the guy's arm or dislocated the guy's arm quite quickly. He's a massive underdog for that. I think it was for that fight and the walkout they mentioned me, and I was like, oh my god.
Mum have made it.
And Mum have made it. And then being in the corner, being in the UFC corner for a few of his fights is also a pinch me moment as well.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's a sport I've grown up with and loved for so many years. So that, and then getting travel. Like, what do you mean I don't have to pay for my flights and my accommodation? I'm just getting to go there.
That's cool.
So that's cool as fuck. And then obviously recently been to Thailand and things like that. So yeah, traveling's been a massive plus and a massive kind of huge thing for me.
Yeah, so first time in Thailand then there recently, which I think's mad from someone who's like in this world. Like, fine, I thought that would be like a box you would want to tick off sooner. So talk through like Muay Thai and that sort of stuff. It's almost like it's a different sport, isn't it?
Yeah, so I've not got many
like
Muay Thai fighters. I don't train any actually, but going over there and seeing the culture and how it is so ingrained into their culture, like every guy will do it at least some point in their life, and that's a huge, like, doesn't matter how old they are, and you see like a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old that was having a fight and he'd had like 50 fights already, and it's not like they go in with headgear or there's no protection, it's just they're scrapping. Is it good? Probably not, and it makes you a little bit like squeamish and almost awkward watching it. Like, I don't think I should be cheering on this kid to knock out this other kid, but I'll definitely be going back to Thailand. It's one of my favourite places I've ever been to, and just the culture, the people, how happy they are. I'll be going back there for sure, absolutely.
What was like training like over there?
Superb. So I trained at a place called Bang Tao MMA, massive big facility. You train as much as you want, essentially. There's like 8 classes on a day. It's fitness classes, it's yoga, it's MMA, it's boxing, it's Muay Thai. It's everything you kind of want to do. Muay Thai training itself over there is very old school. So their S&C isn't the greatest. Not a Bang Tao, they're quite Western, but like if you're going to a proper like old school Muay Thai gym, it's very like just absolutely beast you.
Yeah.
Honestly. But that's sometimes, if you're going across for a fitness holiday, that's
what you want.
what you want a little
a
bit
new
of that.
appreciation
You want
to
that
what's
kind
going
of
on.
stuff. But for an elite level fighter, you probably wouldn't want.
Do you follow much of the guys over here then that are out?
Yes.
Like Nico and that sort of stuff?
I know Nico. Well, I don't know him, but I know obviously of him. And a
Mm.
few. There's a guy called Haggerty down south who's exceptionally good, and I know Nico's nutritionist quite well. I've been speaking to him. I met up with him in Bangkok actually. So yeah, I follow it a lot more now. I think in my preparation for going to Thailand, I kind of got into it a lot. So I follow a lot of it now. Yeah.
Where do you see the sort of improvements that you can make with strength and conditioning with Muay Thai?
Very similar to what I saw with boxing. More science, less just let's fucking go for it all the time. And Nico's like that. Like I've heard from a lot of people, Nico's mindset's brilliant. He trains super, super hard, but probably maybe too hard. And I got in trouble from Nico's coach for saying that before. I'll say again.
Is it Piper, isn't it? Piper Performance. I met him at Commando Fitness.
Oh yeah, Commando Fitness. Yeah,
I've met him before. I follow him on Instagram. But it's like each to their own. I think that just shows you, isn't it? Like the differences.
There's so many different ways to skin a cat, and for me, I'm massive on making Scottish fighting as best possibly can. We're so far behind.
Yeah,
we've not got the infrastructure like America does. Like, have you seen some of the colleges over in America?
The facilities, yeah. Even the teams of people they can put together. So, what would be like? So, let's say you had you got Paul just now. You might get some of the best around him.
Yeah.
But let's say like you have a new up and coming fighter that is potential to go to the UFC. What would be, no money aside, doesn't matter who it is, what does that team consist of?
So I also have pillars of performance. So they've got to have their pillars of performance. One is pillar, obviously, strength and conditioning coach. You've got to have that. You've got to have a nutritionist. You've got to have a mindset coach, in my opinion. A lot of fighters don't, but I think they probably should. You've got to have a good head coach, and you've got to have a good stable of people around you in terms of sparring partners. Paul Craig's issue previously in his old gym was that he was the only light heavyweight there.
Oh, right, okay.
So he was, who have you got to spar with?
Yeah.
He's not really got any. And
there's a saying like to run faster, you need to run with faster people.
Exactly.
So it's almost the same.
Steel sharpens steel. And then another thing would be, another pillar is your support network, so your family or your friends, or making sure you've got a good one of that. I've had a fighter before who, unfortunately, his partner at the time was holding him back, and I think she was scared that he was going to get big and like move off to America or whatever, and she was almost, just destroying his career a little bit in various things he did. So I think that's massively important. And
that's a pillar that can be hard to change. Like, who draws the line to have that conversation?
Yeah,
the mindset coach, the head coach, you.
Is that, well, I never said anything. I'm not getting involved.
I've got one job here to get you stronger, injury prevention, and all that sort of stuff.
You do become friends with them, but you don't want to overstep the mark.
Of course,
you can't be saying you need to break up with your missus.
I've heard you talk about this, and we obviously find it in the coaching sessions I do, but that fine line of like, here we're gossiping a lot here, like come on, let's get to work. Like we need to do this, and it's quite hard to balance, but it's all peaks and troughs, I think, as well. So from a team, when you're putting a team together, what does the head coach like? What would that sort of entail with what's going on there? Is that just the day-to-day stuff?
So James, let's take James Doolan for example. So he's the head coach at higher level. He will be kind of doing like the MMA classes mainly, and his expertise is a striking, so he'll be doing MMA striking, and then there might be a jiu-jitsu coach who'll be doing just the jiu-jitsu. Then you might have a wrestling coach, because in MMA there's so many sports. You've got your head coaches, then you've got your sub coaches that are maybe take control of each individual art. But the head coach is there to oversee everything and to oversee almost like the game plan and what that athlete should be working on from a technical aspect. I'll always try and tie in with the head coach and be like, how's he looking? Is there anything you need to like?
Yes, you get the bird's eye view.
Yeah, what does he need to work on from your perspective? Well, actually, his kicks are actually quite slow, so we can maybe develop his kick. All right, okay, I can do this for his kicks. His footwork isn't the best. Okay, I'll do this, or whatever it may be. I'll just listen to it. That's why I like going and watching them spar a lot of the times, because I want to see how it's actually translating what I'm doing to the mats and to the octagon. How
good are athletes at communicating like what's going on to you? Like, how's things? Yeah, good. No, like, what's good? Like, talk to me.
What does that mean? Again, that is, most of them are like that. They'll just say it's good when it's the world's falling apart around them. You know what I mean? But
What'd you get up to last night? Oh, I was up to 2 a.m. Like, right, cool. This is information we need to know.
But I think that's also a guy thing as well, a lot of the
Yeah.
time. So again, that's coaching though. You got to kind of try and figure out, are they okay? And you know, like if they're saying they're good one day, it can come across different. Like are they? You might be able to pick up that they're actually not good. You know what I mean? So we were a fighter just now. I was like, "How you doing, mate?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm fine, mate." But I knew there was like, he's not fine. There's something going on. So you need to delve on a little bit deeper.
Oh, of course. What would make Scotland? What would help Scotland catch up with the rest of the world?
It's hard to change culture, right? But I think Scottish culture isn't. I don't think we're the most supportive of people for other people doing things out with normal paths. I think like when someone I think it's called tall poppy syndrome, or like crabs in a bucket. You know what I mean? Like people try and pull people down a lot of times. So I think we need to kind of get out of that kind of aspect. Infrastructure is a massive thing as well. Like I say, I mentioned the American colleges, they've just got everything set up for sports. I think the weather doesn't help either.
No, of course not.
You know what I mean?
Everything needs to be indoors.
I've
done a track session this morning. I was like, man, my knees and my ankles. I was like, I could feel this. So it's different.
Shocking. So a lot of things we can't change. We can't change the weather, but I think like attitudes towards sport and the kind of maybe the infrastructure can be changed.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I even see it in like comments of TikTok, even your TikToks, like some of the the hate that comes through, especially why is it for someone like Paul Craig, someone who's doing well, I guess, like I would never see this hate towards like someone like Andy Murray, for example.
Yeah,
and I know there's different, right?
Oh,
but
right,
why is it that sort of happens? What would you say?
I think one thing is everyone thinking they can fight, right?
Aye.
You know, every man thinks they can
Yeah.
fight. So a lot of them are just like, oh well, I would do this and I would do this and this. And I think they genuinely think they could maybe beat up Paul Craig, or they think they could strike better than him. His striking's not amazing, but it's fucking a lot better than yours.
Aye.
So
it's not amazing compared to the 0.1% of
they don't
kills.
realise how far away they are from someone like him.
Yeah.
So I think they think they have the right to comment on it, but like you say, they would never just presume they can play tennis. So I think that's an aspect of it where they just think they can fight when they really can't.
Yeah.
I don't know. There seems to be a lot more hate in MMA than there does in other sports. I think it's all combat sports. There seems to be a lot of it. I don't know whether it's the demographic, whether
maybe
more aggressive and nasty people watch it than tennis. But it's a good point. I don't know why
it's mental. I think it baffles me. It's almost it is just like there is an element of this tall poppy syndrome and that sort of stuff. When you mention culture as well, I think another thing with our culture is getting stuck into your, like I even see it with fighters who have potential. Like next door, they've got their kickboxing and boxing and whatnot, and this guy's as young as 15, 16, but they're roped into that world of like going out with their friends and all that sort of stuff, and it must be a hard thing to do, but how would you get through to someone, or what would your advice be to someone who's just in this 12-week fight camp mode? Rather than, I even get questions because I know a lot of the boys next door. It's like, what diet should I go on? I'm like, where are you in your phase of training? Oh, I'm fighting in 8 weeks. It's like, we're too late. Where you need to do, like you can do something, of course, but like the best work's done in the off season.
It's hard to get that across them, and it's almost they'll learn when something goes wrong.
When they lose.
They learn when they lose, but for some people, it's almost too late. It's like, you can't convince people to change if they don't want to change. You can't force someone to change. So you try and surround them as much as you can with like positive influences and give them the knowledge and be like, and give them examples of where it's went wrong. Like I've had a guy who used to play for Celtic and he was like unbelievable talent, but his attitude was fucking stinking. Coming half an hour late, blah, blah, blah. And I remember speaking to him, would you ever think about like playing for Dundee or Dundee United? He went, I'm a bit too good for that, mate.
Was it arrogance?
Arrogance.
Right.
And now he plays for a junior team.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you maybe show them as examples, but remember this guy. And that might give them a kick up the arse. But if nowadays, if you're not training year round and you're an athlete, then you're a part-time athlete.
Yeah. You're doing it for, well, it's almost like, why compete at this point?
Yeah. You'll get left behind.
Why do you think people do compete? Because people do like half-arse the competing side of things. Do you think it's a good thing? Like you said, like going to Thailand and seeing 14, 15-year-olds compete. It just seems to be embraced in the culture as it's not. Would you say it's not even bragging rights, isn't it? It's just like it's like playing a game of fives at, at the weekends.
That's
it's
exactly
just,
what it's like.
Yeah.
It is like, it's more like playing a game of fives than it is like an actual fight. And it's more about, it's not even about the winning and losing for them. They don't care about your win to loss record for them. It's more about being entertaining, being exciting, being respectful is more. So you do get good things from just competing, don't get me wrong, but fighting's a dangerous sport to just half-arse compete. I mean, you're going to get yourself hurt.
So speaking of danger then, let's talk about like steroids in sport. I think this is one that's it's a juicy topic to go into. What's your opinion on it? So I've seen you go back and forth with a couple of different things.
It's a tricky one. One part of me is like, let's just fucking legalise it, because they're all doing it anyway, or most of them are doing it anyway, especially in America and Brazil and Russia. But then the other part of me is, it might get a bit dangerous. But I think it's more dangerous now than it would be if it was legalised, because at least everyone knows that they're taking stuff. Where it's all going to be done by doctors, and it's all going to
get blood work done regularly.
Yeah, it's all going to be done legit.
Stuff, yeah.
Whereas just now you've got maybe 60% or 70% of fighters are taking it, and then maybe 30% are not. And then you've got the 70 fighting or the 60 fighting the 40, whatever it is, and I think that's more dangerous. But wherever there is competition, it doesn't even mean wherever there's money. Wherever there's competition, it could be like a fucking walking competition. People will try and cheat, and will get whatever edge they can possibly get, because we all want to win. And as competitors, we all want to win. As athletes, we all want to win. So it's very, very hard to rule it out or like to stop it completely. It's a game of cat and mouse. Some people get caught. Like boxing is absolutely rife in boxing. Absolutely. More so than MMA, I think. In football, I believe it's absolutely rife as well. Basketball, all these sports.
I think most sports, I think, well, every sport, like you said, there's an element of it happening. I don't understand why, because we have a sport of like bodybuilding, which is about aesthetically how someone's balanced on stage. Yeah. And you got your open categories and your closed categories of what you can take and what you can't. Yeah. Even in the closed categories, there's pages that I follow now, and guy's been called out and he steps on stage and you're like, no fucking way, he's fucking natural, man. Yeah. Like, it's just physically like impossible from the size and height and mass that he has. Yeah. So it's just it's such a hard conversation to like navigate through. Do you think it encourages more people to take it?
It being banned? Almost, because it's I don't know, more people would take it if it's legal though. Every one of my fighters would be taking it if it's legal, 100%.
It's like a supplement at this point.
Yeah, like creatine.
That's right.
So the numbers certainly wouldn't go down if it made it legal, but they would certainly be doing it a safer way if they made it legal. It's a very tricky one. Combat sports especially, it's very, very tricky. But for a spectator, we want to see the most exciting fights where you're going to get that. And we want to see our fighters recovering from injuries quicker, so they're back. You're going to get that with legalisation of it.
They're doing all that with peptides anyway. It's weird that that's just something that's like, yeah, cool, that's fine. But it's something like...
Well, they're banned on the UFC.
Oh, are they? I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
UFC, yeah.
Are they banned in sports then, in general, do you know?
I think some sports they are, some sports they aren't. I'm not sure. I think in the NFL they're legal.
That's might be what I've seen, like the BP 157, the injury. Just when you said the injury recovery.
Yeah, I think maybe in them are illegal, but a lot of places are not. It's hard to keep up with the list of things they ban.
But this is what I don't get. Like, draw a line in the sand. Like, what's the reason why? What are we classifying as an advantage or a disadvantage? Because then we go down the rabbit hole of genetics.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what's your thoughts on that then? Genetically, like, how do you standardise all this sort of stuff?
You can't. That's impossible. It's impossible. There's no point bringing in like, oh, well, this guy's got whatever. He's got long limbs. You know what I mean? You're
in the 157 category of centimetres how long your forearm is.
So that's impossible. Like, and obviously we can't do anything. But yeah, soon you'll be able to fucking make a fighter. I mean, genetically make one before they're born.
Very exciting, eh?
Yeah.
We see it's gonna be funny how the roles reverse here. You'll be a 8-year-old strength and conditioning coach. You're like, I don't believe in this genetically modified fighter.
Nonsense, absolutely nonsense.
The roles will be fully reversed at that point. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Like even like Conor McGregor and things like that. Like surely they know. This is what I don't understand. How they can say, look, we're banning it, or we're not having any fighters take it, and clearly you can see in the off seasons like what's happening just by numbers. As a strength and conditioning coach, you'll probably appreciate it more. It's like,
absolutely,
you cannot gain that amount of strength by increasing a
People don't and this is I put up something about Conor McGregor being on steroids, and it's obvious because that's what, and people are like, I could put on that, and like you can't naturally, not muscle. You can put on fat. We'll do that on holiday. You know what I mean? Put on 30 pounds easily, but you can't be putting on that kind of muscle. It takes years and years, and people don't realise how hard it is, especially when in a sport where their energy output is so high. Training twice a day. Think of the calories they would have to consume just to be at a base
surplus,
level. Yeah, a surplus would be massive.
It's huge.
So they don't realise that. People just don't know. But Conor McGregor, obviously, I think he got a pass because he's fucking Conor McGregor, and he broke his leg, so they allowed him to take stuff. I personally don't think Conor McGregor will be fighting again because I think he needs to go to rehab.
I saw your post on this,
Yeah, I think he needs to go to rehab and he needs some help. And instead of Dana White and all these people saying, oh, he'll be back in the end of April or the end of the next year, they need to be saying he needs to get himself some help, because he does. Although it's entertaining maybe for us to watch.
Still role model for some people as well, and the health of someone has to be a priority.
Completely destroyed his legacy with his antics and things he says and the way he acts, and he needs to get into rehab ASAP.
What's who's fighters that you look up to in the sport just now?
There's a guy called Volkanovski.
Right.
I look up to guys who are like the quintessential martial artists. The thing that does people who do everything right. So Volkanovski, there's a guy called Mighty Mouse Demetrius Johnson. Paul Craig's another one, because I know what he has went through and what he does to try and make weight. It's fucking insane.
There's an appreciation for it. So I've heard you talk about this. Like, that was quite a pivotal part then of being able to go, right, what is possible to get this to make weight? And then it's just been the game plan since.
Yeah. So it's tough for him to make weight, but there's ways we can do it. Like what I think I've talked about before, eliminating the eccentric part of the lifts, and so there's no muscle tear, so there's no DOMs, so you get less muscle growth, all these things. But it's mainly down to the nutrition at that point, as you know. So, but it's extremely tough, and we're borderline on the point of diminishing returns with that, whether it's actually good for him. We're probably swivering about going back up a weight class, to be honest. Top secret. But we'll see how things go. But but people who put that amount of work in are always quite inspiring, and that's who I like, opposed to people who have ridiculous antics outside. And I've also seen how Paul deals with, like, or reacts with fans and, like, interacts with fans, and it's brilliant. He's never turned down, like, a photo or anything. It's
just more characteristics of fighters.
It's more personality, how they are as people is what I like. I don't like, there's some fighters that are absolutely unbelievable, like John Jones, but he's not a nice person, so I'm not saying he's my favourite fighter, you know what I mean? But yeah, more of what they like as a person. What's
some of the worst strength and conditioning you've seen across the board?
Tyson Fury's.
Tyson
Fury's, yeah. Unfortunately, the strength and conditioning coach followed me, and I didn't notice, and I put up something about Tyson Fury. He unfollowed me, so he must have seen it. But, like, it's horrendous. It really is really bad, and it's not justifiable, even from a bodybuilder's perspective.
I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a tactic, because I've heard you say this as well. It's a very interesting point. I don't think coaches realise if you have someone that's competing, he can give a lot away through how you're training, especially in a sport where it's one-on-one. Like, straight away you're highlighting a different strategy or weaknesses that you can then have. So I thought maybe this was a strategy, and then I was like, just doing a bro split, training arms on a Friday. Like, what is going on?
The one that goes around is his shoulder workout, and it's a bro split, but he's not even doing the bro split correctly. The technique is fucking horrendous. And then someone mentioned me and said, "Oh, but that's not where his S&C coach. That's out with." I was like, okay, maybe he just went into the gym one day when he was at the hotel. Or
it's just been videoed.
But then I saw other stuff in it. It's really fucking bad. And, like, at the end of the day, it's just strength and conditioning. So understand his S&C coach unfollow me and stuff. And if anyone ever wants to, like, if he wants to confront me about it, I'll be happy to speak to him about it.
Get into a good conversation.
I'm not going to be a dick to him about it. I'll just be like, look, this is why I thought it was bad. And, like, if he came up with an answer and I changed my mind, then I would do a post saying, oh, it's good, and this is why I thought it was bad. And then I would change my mind on it. Like, I'm not afraid to change my opinion on stuff. But if I see it and I think it's shit, I'm just going to say I think it's shit, no matter who it is. But people put these people on pedestals and think, oh, well, it's Tyson Fury, it must be amazing. And that's not how it works.
Cristiano Ronaldo's as well.
Footballers are horrendous.
Yeah, footballers have it wrong. Like, I don't know what possesses them to do some of the mad stuff that they do.
And the fact that they only train once a day annoys me. Because I'm like, if MMA fighters can train twice a day, I know they play it week in, week out, but training twice a day doesn't mean that you go and beast yourself again at night. You know what I mean? It could be like a mobility session, it could be yoga maybe, but they're like, no, we'll do 1.5 hours in the morning, that's us done.
And it's like rest is couch. lie with the compression boots on.
Yeah, he loved
That's
those
it. And it's like, it's mad. There's so much untapped potential for some of these guys. What's see when it comes to like having opinions on stuff, have you ever been wrong about anything that you said? You've had to go back in your word with? Just going through the years of training.
I'm always right, man.
Just so good.
Just always right. Nah, there will have been things I'm wrong about, absolutely. I think there's a guy called Gilbert Burns, UFC fighter, who put up a video and it was him getting an absolute beast, and I was saying this is not how you train, but they do that once at the end of camp, and it's called Fight Gone Bad, and it's more of a mental toughness thing, and it's more of a thing where they're like, if I can get through this, there's not a person on earth that can put me through this. You know what I mean? So it's not about the technique, it's not about the scientific adaptations and all that kind of stuff. But I thought that was them doing that week in, week out, and I was like, this is horrendous, you shouldn't be doing this. But it was like everyone was there cheering them on. It was like just a one-off kind of thing.
It's like perspective. Sometimes I think you can make an argument for anything to have its place in any sort of programming, strength conditioning. Knowing the facts behind it can be a hard thing, but seeing it in the front of us, like, and I've been quite judgmental with some stuff actually, and I'm like, I don't know why they're doing that, and then I'm thinking, they could be nursing an injury, could be doing, like, it could be a different reason as to why they're doing it. Absolutely. Maybe it's not about just always building muscle or losing fat and that sort of thing. So you obviously post a lot of like critiques of strength conditioning on different people's work, and I think they're great. It's good to see. Who would you say has the best fight camp other than Paul Craig, of course?
Oh yeah, Paul Craig is by far the best. But apart from Paul Craig, I'm trying to think who's really good. A guy called Michael Chandler, he fought the weekend and lost, but his is really good.
What makes there's another question for you. What makes a good fight camp? Everything that you said before with the dream team. Yeah,
having everything in place. They've got a really good setup. Style bender, so Israel Adesanya, Volkanovski, they've all got really good coaches, really good setups. There's loads of guys in America have good setups, but because they've got big, massive super gyms, essentially. Yeah. There's pros and cons to super gyms, because you might be a small fish in a very, very big pond and not get the attention that you quite need. But for the elite of the elite, it's usually quite good. So don't get me wrong, there is good S&C out there, but a lot of it's trash too.
Yeah. What's been like one of the best atmospheres to be in?
UFC London.
Or like as a venue, I was thinking more like fight in camps and training facilities. Yeah.
So I'm quite fortunate.
Yeah.
Like they've all been. I've never had really. Oh, this camp's horrendous.
Right.
Like there's been bad camps, but it's never where like it's got nasty. Like where people are falling out with each other or bitching about each other. Paul Craig and where were we? We're fighting in Vegas. We're fighting in Vegas. He was getting a bit nippy.
Right.
Because he was so low in calories.
I was going to say tensions are high.
He was being a dick.
Cranky.
I was like, you're being a fucking dick. So we had a wee bit of fun, but not really. And then afterwards, he was like, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, you just need some food, you know what I mean? So like that's
hangry.
Yeah, hangry. But I'm like I say, I'm fortunate where all my clients pretty much are my mates. So that's a massive, massive pro. Like it can be a con sometimes. Like we talked about, like maybe we don't get the work done that we should do because we're fucking talking about life shit. But it's a massive, massive pro. It means that they know that I'm there for one reason, that's to make them get better, and there's no question about that. So there's never really any big falling outs.
Yeah.
Been quite fortunate.
Yeah, but that is a kind of testament to your character of building a relationship and all that sort of stuff. So that's a good thing there. Right, so segueing over to like influencer side of things, right? Obviously, saw your post. It's funny, I seen your post going, Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, who's watching this? And then a couple of weeks later, I was like, here, actually, I'm getting quite excited for this. And then the one after's like, no, it's a disappointment. Wish I never watched it. Just an emotional roller coaster of good marketing, good following that. What's your thoughts on the whole influencer side of things, influencer boxing and that sort of stuff?
I think it's becoming a little bit farcical now. I don't mind some crossovers at the start, but there's a bit too much of it, and it's my worry is it bleeds, the antics bleed into real boxing and real MMA, and it's going to get dangerous as well. So there was a guy, there's a guy in, I can't remember his name, there's a guy, a TikToker, who was wanting to fight Nacho Novo.
Oh, yeah. Kaz Milligan.
Right, so I put things on TikTok about that saying it's fucking ridiculous because Nacho Novo's had a fucking heart attack, right, and he's never boxed before in his life. What's he doing stepping in it? Like, there's serious consequences, or can be seen when you step into a ring, or an octagon, or a cage, or whatever. So my worry is people end up fighting OAPs like fucking Mike Tyson, who nearly died. Well, he came out and said he nearly died a few months ago with his ulcers and things like that. It's going to end very badly at one point. You can't keep on doing this, and then someone's going to get hurt. So that's my worry. And my worry is that the antics of this, maybe, and a lot of it's fake as well, that bleeds over into boxing or into MMA, because Jake Paul said that he didn't try and knock Mike out. It's not match fixing, it's not fight fixing, but if you put fucking £100 on someone to get knocked out and they've just came and said, yeah, we weren't really trying to knock each other out, I'm going to be a bit annoyed by that.
It's a bit of grey area, isn't it?
There's a bit of a grey area there, so I'm not happy with that either. So I think it needs to stop, to be honest.
It's mental. I had, when I had speaking to Scott on the podcast, and he made a good point about it, that in the professional careers and whatnot, you've got your brain scans, you're getting your health checkups and all that. They're not doing this.
No,
like, maybe like at the level of Jake Paul and that sort of stuff, yes, but Kaz Milligan and the property boss or whatever, like the Scottish influencer, even the whole KSI, Tommy Fury and all that sort of stuff, there'll be elements of that, but they are like, just look at it's just like, it's like street fighting, like two people just getting in the ring and just going at it for entertainment stuff. But it shows you, it's quite crazy. It shows you the power of marketing, like what they're doing, selling out crazy fights of, you could probably name maybe 100 other fighters that you'd prefer to see in the ring from an entertainment side of things, but you just don't have the social following and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Is there anything from because obviously Paul's doing the Leather podcast and that, and I don't know if that's what's helped with his status in the UFC as well. Do you see any of that with some of the newer athletes coming through, of like creating a bit of a social presence?
Yeah, so one of my guys, Mickey Parkin, who's a UFC fighter, he trains down south with like Tom Aspinall and like all that. He won recently and got a big bonus. He got a 100k bonus, I think, and the first thing he did with it is he went and got a videographer on board.
Brilliant.
Created a YouTube, got a social media kind of team. And he's now pushing that. And I think people need to realise that more. And I remember speaking to a guy called Audie Ater, who is Conor McGregor's manager, about it. And I was like, is that something you look for? And he was like, yeah, it's pretty big. Like, you've got to have a social media presence. Like, if you've got 5 million followers, you're going to get a better contract than someone with 10,000 followers. It's just as simple as that. And you might not like it, but that's the way it is. So it's a massive thing. Massive thing. I
had a question here, like, about your face fitting the UFC, and it kind of revolved around that, and I think there is a part to that. Yep, do you remember like Rich Piana? Like, weirdly, I know. But I remember watching his videos back in the day, and he was talking to this another an absolute monster of a guy, and he said that the first question he asked him, because the guy came up to him in the gym, it's in one of his vlogs, and he's like, how many followers have you got on Instagram? He's like, I don't have an Instagram. He goes, well, I'm not going to have you in my team. He's like, the biggest thing for us having, they were calling them bodybuilders, athletes, obviously different fish and all that. But he was saying about the importance of that. I remember I didn't really understand that like 15 years ago. I wish I did, because I would have started doing it a wee bit more. But it's weird that it is a cornerstone of everything that we do, from business to even just everything. Absolutely. Everything. If there's a monetary side of things or a opportunity side of things attached to it.
Even for smaller athletes, like if you want a sponsorship with My Protein, or you want like, I'm not going to really give you it if you've got social media. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you might as well get on top of the social media now. And I know my mate Sam Hickey, he's just started doing that a lot now. He's just turned pro, and he's got like a videographer, a guy called Carl, who's really, really good. And it's good to see that they're taking it seriously and they're doing stuff like that, because you'll make so much fucking money.
Oh yeah, for sure. What's like the next chapter for you then? So you mentioned you went to Thailand.
Yep.
Great experience. So you sold your flat as well. We were just saying off podcasting, rented it out. Sorry. Yeah. And what's the plan behind that? You just try to split your time a wee bit more and see the world.
What I was going to do is I split my time between here and Thailand pretty much. So I think tax reasons you're maybe going to do 6 months in each. So 6 months here, 6 months in Thailand, maybe 3 months each time kind of thing. Obviously I've got my own gym, so we're getting that up and running for classes in January. So I'm thinking there's a big UFC March. I'll do that. Probably a lot of my guys will be fighting on that, and then I'll go away after that for a few months. It's just better over there. Yeah, it's just better, mate.
Are you going to try and recruit a Thai fighter then? Is that on the cards?
I wouldn't mind doing that. Actually. I wouldn't mind training a Thai fighter out there. But for me, going over there is kind of a for me thing, and it's like for my training. Because you know yourself, with training everybody, you can kind of let your own training slip. Because the last thing you want to do when you've been in a gym all day is maybe spend another hour training yourself in a gym.
It's weird, isn't it? Because you think the opposite. You're like, I'm going to train. I'm going to be massive.
Yeah, gym,
and you're spotting something. You're like, oh fuck, what's on this? Like, fighting the hardest.
So I think maybe I like going away and just concentrating on myself and my own training for a bit.
Yeah,
that's kind of my plan.
Are you still competing in your own things?
No, not really. I like to keep my hand
fancy it?
in just so, like, if Paul Craig wants to roll about and, like, while we're away, I can do it. It's fun for me. I enjoy
Surprise
it.
him, Joe.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't see this coming.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I like keeping my hand in and doing little bits in here and there, but I thought not really got the kind of desire to compete. I've done it a few times in jiu-jitsu and stuff, but
Nah. Are you single then now? Yeah. So this is a big thing to kind of go through that. You said you were ready for it, the mindset and everything, kind of sorted.
Absolutely.
So was it amicable breakup?
it was
to an extent?
But I think, like, not to be dramatic, right? But people legitimately kill themselves over fucking the ends of breakups and shit like that. Like, that happens, right? So I remember when we broke up, I was thinking, right, I need to make sure, not anything that would happen, I hope not, but I need to make sure my mindset's on point. So I remember, like, I did a few things, like cleared out my Instagram of any negativity. I fucking tried to, like, I followed stoicism pages, like daily, like, happiness pages, and just tried to create as much positivity, because I can't, people be like, oh, why don't you just come off social media? Well, I can't, I've got my business, you know, I can't just come off social media. But I don't want to be going on social media and seeing negativity, even though it's completely unrelated, and then follow it. I wanted to treat it like an athlete who gets an injury. I'll learn everything about that injury and I'll rehab that injury for them. So I wanted to treat it like that. So I followed, like, Dr. Andrew Huberman was talking about it from a neurological standpoint, what happens during a breakup and how that works.
The chemistry and the
chemistry. So I wanted to understand the underlying things going on, what to do and what not to do, and how to get over it the best way possible.
Did it hurt?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like, when you're with someone for 9 years, even though it was amicable and it was my decision at the end of the day, it's still not, especially when you lose 2 dogs.
I know.
And I'm also big on turning a negative into a positive. So, like, I think you can turn every negative into a positive in some way. Most things, obviously, if you lose a loved one, turn that into a positive.
But you need to seek the silver lining almost.
You need to go and find it. So my way of finding it was like, right, okay, lost my 2 dogs, lost my partner. What does that give me? Well, it gives me a bit of freedom. It does give me, like, dogs are brilliant, right? They're fucking brilliant, but they're tying. So what can I do now? Well, I can go and fucking travel Southeast Asia. So that's what I did. Went to Thailand, went to Indonesia. So that was a massive, massive positive for me. So it's turned that negative into a massive, massive positive. Another thing I did for my mindset was just, a lot of people argue with themselves, or, like, catastrophize, and when in their shower, like, oh, if she said this, I'm going to fucking say this. And then the argument doesn't happen.
Wasted energy into it.
You've released all those stress hormones in your head.
And you're angry. You're
angry. Or what happens, I found, is when you do that, you maybe go into the conversation, maybe you know your way to meet someone, or you're made to go out on a night out and someone's there that you don't like, and in the shower when you're getting ready, he fucking brings up that, I'm going to say this.
Energy shows, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then you go into that situation where your back already up and you're like, I'm fucking ready to go here, right? And he might say something that's completely innocent, or she might say something and you take it completely the wrong way, and it's argument time. So you either make the argument happen, which is not fucking good, or the argument doesn't happen anyway and you've just fucking stressed yourself out for no apparent reason. So I'm very cautious of that, and like, kind of positive self-talk and all those kind of things, because I think that's absolutely massive.
Yeah. It's good to hear. I actually absolute nuggets of information there, because I think it's almost like grief in a sense, isn't it? You have to, like, grieve something, but that's
Dr.
yeah.
Huberman
Is it? Yeah.
That's exactly
I can imagine it being a very similar recovery process for that. But you've done. It also opens up new doors, new chapters, and new opportunities. But sometimes you can be so deep within the mud that if it is someone who's passed away, or if it's a really, like, a long-term relationship breaking up, it's like life's over. It's like, well, it doesn't have to be.
No, absolutely
you have to find the doors to open up.
You've got to look at, like I say, we've got to look at the positives, and I kind of looked at myself and like there's a lot of positives that I've got, like, quite successful. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it would be horrendous to deal with a breakup if it was just completely out of the blue. You're maybe in a dead-end job that you hate. Like, that would be really hard.
That would be hard. It would probably be like when your fighters get injured. Like, it's their whole life, and it's taken away from them.
Yes.
And sometimes long-term relationships, or a relationship of that sort, can be attached to that. Like, nothing else in life is really that good, but that becomes, it's like, fuck, what else is it? Because that's where their self-worth was tied to.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's good. So where's from a fighting perspective or coaching perspective, are you looking to grow that side of things? Is there anyone on the cards that you're going to fire into their DMs, or are you at a different stage of life now?
I'm at a different stage of life now, so I'll probably not be doing that. I feel
John
like.
Jones. Hey, mate.
Yeah.
Your 5K time. Yeah, we could get that.
We can improve that. You're also a piece of shit. No, but I do that less now. I used to do it religiously, like 10 messages a day, just boom, 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 boom. Anyone who was even associated with combat sports who did it a bit, I would just message them.
Where'd you learn that from? Was there anyone that kind of said
Gary V? I think.
Gary
V.
Yeah.
I think Gary V talks
about the Netflix story. I think it is, isn't it?
Netflix,
Oh no, it's not. Is it? I think I'm merging two stories together. I think the founder, and I can't remember if it's Netflix or not, but the story goes along the lines of like not giving up. So they were hiring the CEOs or whatever, and there was 3 in the final interview, and they said no to all 3 of them, and just the one guy just followed up, and it was the importance of following up with messages.
Got you.
Probably butchered that story. It might not even be Netflix, probably premise. Amazon or something like that. But it was along the lines of Gary Vee was highlighting the importance of like being so consistent and persistent of like getting out there. And he talks about internships a lot. He's like if where do you want to work? And it's like, right, how many jobs you apply for? 1. It's like, you need to apply for 100 then in that day. So it's just volume.
It's a volume thing. And like you say, most of them are going to come back and say no, but you'll get a UFC fighter one day who does this.
What's been the single best decision that you'd made like through that? So obviously there's been lots. Like, what stands out in your mind?
Quitting my job, like quitting the jail, was by far the best decision I've made. And yeah, that's changed my life. Absolutely. I'd still be working in jail, probably depressed, probably extremely overweight. That's by far the best decision I've ever made. Probably the bravest decision I've ever made, because obviously it was scary at the time. In terms of the business, working for free, the best decision I've made, because it's brought on so many people. And just having the bravery to kind of start posting myself was a good decision as well.
Yeah. It's weird you say working for free. It was I've done an episode on like how to become a better personal trainer. And I was like, the best thing I done was train people for free in the month of January. That single-handed that month filled my books for the rest of the year. And I was like, it's weird. It's a weird concept to like grasp around.
Because I think people want to make money.
Aye.
But sometimes it's like a lost leader, my dad always says, and you just got to work for free for a bit.
Yeah.
It pays off.
Especially in this world of what we're in with the space of relationship building and coaching. It's not you buy that camera for X amount. Like, that's different. You wouldn't give the camera away for free, and maybe there's maybe a sales tactic in there where it may work, but when it comes to an actual coaching service, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, it's also so saturated. Like, our market's so saturated. How are you going to stand out?
Yeah.
But the only issue I've found slightly, I've given programs away for free.
Right.
They don't get used.
Nah.
Because there's no value.
If you're not there, then no accountability. It's like, oh yeah, that's cool. And it's like,
I charged you £300 for that program, I bet you fucking use it.
You follow it, yeah.
Because you paid
finding the balance, isn't it, of what service it shows up for. Yeah, right, see, with strength and conditioning coaches, do you feel like the kind of newer generation growing up, do you see like younger coaches coming into that space? Are they reaching out for help and that sort of stuff?
So I've got a free like a kind of coaching group on Facebook where I just started, because the reason I started it was because I wish I had that when I was coming through, because there's so much misinformation and information out there. You don't know what's right and you don't know what's wrong. You don't know what to do. So there's quite a lot of coaches on that like come and ask me questions. I'll have consultations with a lot of coaches nowadays that maybe just coming out of uni and they're like, what do I do? Or people even younger who are like, should I go to uni? Like, you don't have a degree in strength and conditioning. Like, I was like, well, if you want to work for a team, then you need to go to university. But if you want to work for yourself, then you don't really need to. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's a lot more people out there who are kind of more clued up, certainly than even when I started 6 years ago. Yeah, it would be interesting to see how the space evolves, isn't it? Because it's good. I think it's all great things, especially the way the world's going with certain things as well. Couple of final questions then for you. When you're looking at obviously the ideal person to train or a fantasy of coaching, it sounds like I was going to go down a different route there. But you mentioned like Sean Strickland to coach from just because he's not done anything. Where the UFC's at just now, or even sports as a whole, what would be athletes that come to mind? Who would I like to coach? I get asked that a lot and I always struggle for an answer, if I'm honest.
So everyone's also asking from a UFC perspective, right? Do you follow the Olympics much?
A little bit.
What would be a sport you would like to coach in the Olympics?
Probably the easiest one I think would be 100 meters.
Yeah.
From a
that's a fair. That's a good.
Because you know the parameters. It's 100 meters.
Mm.
You don't need to do any like real conditioning work. Right? You know exactly what's going to happen each and every time. Sports that are chaotic, like MMA, judo, wrestling.
So many variables. Yeah.
When you're against someone else, there's too many variables, and that makes the job harder. But also, there's objective markers. If he runs faster, you're doing your job correctly. If he gets slower when he starts working with you, then you're doing your job wrong. You know what I mean? So that's really easy to quantify your worth almost. So it makes it so something like 100 meters, and also there's the glory in 100 meters. Yeah. If you get a whoever, a Usain Bolt, then there's the glory in it a lot more than there is in the fucking cross country skiing or whatever the fuck they do.
It's like higher pedestal, isn't it?
Yeah, there is.
You don't get that same glory with the breakdance competition.
No, exactly. I'm trying to think of boxers. There's probably a few boxers I would like to try. Obviously, you want to try like someone like Canelo and things like that. That would be awesome.
What's the residency like? Do you know much?
It's all right. It's quite like circuit based, like a lot of circuits.
Pretty much,
exercise. But yeah, I think it's decent. He's a strong laddie, but he's probably a strong guy for other reasons.
Do you think so?
Well, he got caught before, and he said it was due to horse meat. I'm pretty sure. No, that was Alistair Overeem.
Oh, is that him? Right, yeah.
Canelo said it was done the tainted supplements. They always use the term tainted supplements, but it was clenbuterol he got caught for.
Was it?
Yeah.
That's fat burner stuff,
fat
isn't
burner,
it?
but it also increases your cardio.
Your
red blood cells. I'm pretty sure. So it's a good one for fighters because they lose their weight, but also the conditioning goes.
It's mad that even that's still a grey area for them. It's like that should be black and white here. Doesn't matter how you got it, you got it.
You got it, exactly.
It doesn't just make its way into your creatine stack.
Yeah, exactly. Good one recently was eggs. This guy, Connor Ben, got caught taking stuff. And he said, I've eaten too many eggs. And like they worked out the amount of eggs. He would have to have like 35 eggs in a day or something like that.
It's bullshit. Isn't it?
Nonsense.
There was a story in the CrossFit space as well where it was the woman says she kissed her husband. It was an absolute outrageous story, and I was like, crazy. What are we doing? Like, come on.
The fact that people think CrossFit athletes aren't on gear is
wild.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I throw that out every so often. I've got a few CrossFit friends and that. A few of them came on the podcast. And I'm like, you're top level athletes. Like, come on. Like,
they're all on gear.
What do you think of the Hyrox space? Do you follow the Elite 15 and all that? No. So that's like they basically pick 15 of the top athletes and they compete themselves in their own course. And so it's the best of the best out of the whole sport, and they do their worlds and that sort of stuff. But because there's only 15 male and female, it's supposedly that they're all tested. But the event is obviously easy to work around and all that sort of stuff. Do you know much of what people do to get around the testing? Yeah. What is it like? What is it?
Well, straight off the bat, if you tell me you're going to get tested on this day, the day of the competition, well then perfect. We know exactly how to get around that. You come off at this time, they only last in your system for so long when it's tests, and then you get your PCT, and you're basically just doing the off season, mate. Right, so that's easy. As soon as you have a definite date for when you're getting tested, you basically have no testing, right? So that's an easy one. For getting around maybe other testing, like randomized testing, there's people in the UFC who will change their location. So there's a lot of Dagestani fighters now, or Russian fighters in the UFC. They might be training in America, but they'll keep their location. It's an app on their phone that they've got to say where they are at all times. They'll make it as like fucking Moscow.
Oh, really?
You're not going into Moscow right now. You know what I mean? Or you're not going into Dagestan right now.
Oh.
Another way, these companies are like USADA. It used to be USADA who do it. They will pay someone in Brazil, like a nurse in Brazil, can you go and take this person's blood? He's a UFC fighter, we need his blood, and then send it to us. Well, that person who's a nurse in Brazil earns about fucking
they paid off pretty easily. Yeah.
So whoever it is, ex-Brazilian fighter will just go, here's $1,000, come back on this day and we'll get it sorted. So there's loads of different ways around it. Have you seen the Wizard? Is it the Wizard? Where it's like a fake dick?
No.
Yeah, so prosthetic dick. And you'll have like a belly belt, and it'll have someone else's, or maybe your clean urine in it. And
you just pretend.
Yeah.
So imagine whipping out a fake dick.
Well, because like sometimes they've got to watch.
They need to see.
So like just whip out. So yeah, whip out fake dick. There's fucking tons of way around it.
That's
also,
mental.
if it's urine only, usually it's just urine only. That's quite easy to get around this too.
Yeah.
Bloods is a bit more difficult, but they don't usually do bloods because it's more expensive.
Yeah.
So there's tons.
Longer processing and everything as well.
Tons. Oh, so you got designer drugs that people don't even pop up on testing now.
Well, that's it. I think that's really to highlight the dangers of it more, because you'd rather take supplements to be no supplements, steroids that the longevity that's been on the market.
Yeah.
Plenty of testing, plenty of subjects of using it.
Yeah.
Whereas the kind of new, no peptides, what's the other one? SARMs and things like that that people are using. It's like, do we really know what's happening?
Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah, gone blind in my right eye all of a sudden.
That
It's
looked
like,
jacked.
it's massive. It's wild. It's funny you say 100 metre because I remember seeing you getting a lot of shit for Usain Bolt.
Usain Bolt, yeah.
Believe then, 100%. Yeah.
But again, like, why not? If you're him, like, you're going to make so much money, you're going to last longer. Why not? It's just, I know he was a giant, so there is always that factor. He was like fucking 6 foot something odd. So there's always that brought into the equation. But he is so far ahead of everybody else, and all his teammates got caught, and everyone else got caught. I think like it was like 7 out of the top 10 got caught.
It's funny because I believe that TikTok comment, you think he'd done like just an off the cuff video, and then there was so much people standing up for him. Obviously, you were like, no, fuck this. I'm going to go down the rabbit hole here. I'm going to find out
doubling down on this.
And then I watched the follow up video. I was like, that's class.
His fucking doctors connected to it massively into like the performance enhancing world. So there's loads and loads of little things about Usain Bolt. You just add them all up, you're like, yeah, he's probably on the juice. But that's another thing about the negativity on social media. Like, it's always good for you. In terms, not mentally, maybe not mentally, but it's always good for your algorithm, for your views. And negative stuff usually gets more, not because, like, I always think there's this nefarious, people think it's like nefarious, like, oh, Facebook are trying to push more negativity and they're trying to like make you feel bad. It's not that, it's just that people have arguments in the comments. Instead of one comment of saying, oh, well done, this is good, it's your fucking shit, that's it. And then that's going to get more comments, and then it just boosts your algorithm and boosts the views.
How do you deal with negative comments yourself? Have you ever been nippy with any of them?
I'm fortunate. I don't know why it is. Maybe it's because I worked in the jail or worked as a fucking bouncer, where I'm getting people telling me that they're going to stab me and they're going to kill me, and I'm looking at a murderer and he's saying he's going to stab me. Like,
you're like, oh, this is real.
This is real. And then I've got some idiot who's saying whatever, right? It just really doesn't bother me. It honestly doesn't. I'm quite fortunate. But I feel like if I was maybe in the beauty space where it's about my appearance, and I'm maybe a female and people are saying this and that about you, I can understand how it can get quite toxic. Yeah,
I guess it's more personal that way.
Yeah, it's more personal when it starts. Like, as a guy, I'm not really giving a fuck if you're saying I've got a big nose.
What about when people comment under your fighters? Does that one hurt more?
That annoys me.
Aye,
because they don't understand, like say Paul Craig got beat the weekend, so I was getting messages like, he's fucking shit. I'm like, you don't realise what he would do to you. You know what I mean? Also,
at the level, and like there's obviously like that wasn't exactly a clean winner of like they went to decision and that sort of stuff. So like when people have this come say, were you watching the same fight? It's like so crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's annoying.
Well, look, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate your time and everything. Fantastic to jump into your story. Definitely need to get back in and maybe we'll do a deep dive on the best S&C methods for fighters or footballers or something like that. Because it's questions that come up all so often, but I know the audience is going to take away a ton. I'll shout all your stuff at the start. Are you taking on stuff, taking on clients and that sort of stuff?
Obviously just back from Thailand, so I'm taking on, I've got a big intake coming for January as well. Good. So if you want to hit me up.
Yeah, I'll leave a link for all the stuff below. Well, pleasure having you on, mate. Thank you.